I need you more. and welcome to another episode of Night's the Last Call live stream. Our ongoing Tuesday and Thursday live streams where we talk about role-playing games, where we sometimes do deep dives into systems. Sometimes we talk a lot about Pathfinder 2 and more specific focus. And tonight we are going to be talking about oracles. And I don't mean the Pathfinder 2 class. I'm specifically talking about a type or brand of table, random table, which you can use as a chaos generator, random idea generator, and in some cases, even as advertised, a replacement, yes, a replacement for your Game Master. This topic, this stream, comes thanks to the support of the Night's the Last Call Patreon. They voted for this topic, and so here we are tonight. The Oracle concept is something that's pretty popular on the Knights of Last Call Discord. And so I am beholden to my awesome and incredible patrons. I just got done cutting over $1,000 of checks for gift certificates, for our winners from our annual Hero Point Prize winning. I've got a stack of books. A stack. Hold on. I'm going to get all these books. Hold on a second. All right, here we go. This is literally, I'm sending out literally all of these books. Jeez. Which were all prizes that we gave away just this month, or I should say December. So we've got a lot of books. We got a lot of stuff that I got to give away. A lot of money been going out the door. But I'm also pretty excited. I just got these in the mail. These are for me. This is Heart and this is Spire. Games that some people may know. Pretty interested to take a look at those and give them a read. It should be a really interesting experience. I don't know if these are games that'll ever get to my table, but I definitely want to read them and I definitely want to check it out. Anthony asks, so what's the table timeline? Great question, Anthony. So Anthony's talking about the fact that those books I'm giving away, that $1,000 of drive-through RPG gift certificates that we're giving away, they're not even the grand prize. The grand prize is myself, with the aid of Bob and Smith, I'm going to be custom creating a table for a patron, name of Matt, Laughing Out Loud, in our patron Discord. And we're going to be building him a custom table. And we're going to be sending it across the country. Not by freight, but by us. We're going to road trip to deliver this custom table to him. And so that's just so awesome. I have no idea what timeline it's going to be. It's going to take us... It's probably going to take us at least a couple months to certainly build it. Maybe even to spec out the table, certainly to build it. I would imagine, given the weather, we'll probably try to make the trip in the summertime. Just to make it easy. Maybe we'll do it between Origins and Gen Con. That might be a good time for us to go. It depends on when our schedules max up. It's easy for me. I'm single. I have no kids. But obviously, Aaron and Bob do. And so obviously, we have to make sure that all works with our work schedules. And of course, we have to make sure that it works with their wives' schedules and their kids' schedules. So, there'll be some, and of course, laughing out laws. But I think it's going to be amazing. And of course, someone asked, who said this? Brutus, are we vlogging the trip? Absolutely. Our plan is to do a mini series of us building the table, which could just be fun and interesting for people who maybe have never really watched anything about woodworking, but as it relates to the gaming perspective of it. So we might do an episode or two of that, sort of to talk about the design of the table, the considerations that we're putting into it, that is going to enable it to become the ideal gaming environment or surface for Matt out there in San Diego. And then when we do hit the road, we hope to do a bunch of vlogs, a bunch of shorts, some live streams from the road or from the hotels, maybe some Patreon meetups along the way. We're probably going to add an extra day to our travels across the country because we're going to try as best as we can to at least do a couple of meetups with folks that might live near the perspective path. But either way, I think it's going to be a whole hell of a lot of fun, and I'm really looking forward to it. Anthony, KC, Are those the Fate books from the first look video with John? KC, those are the Fate books from the first look video with John. Holidays, shipping, everything was crazy. It was like -5 degrees. I wasn't going to leave my house. So the good news is all that stuff is going to be going out here in the next week or so. I actually just found out that also from that stream, or no, that was from Pop It Bingo. Ayla won a box set of Old School Essentials, which Pawn No Longer from our Discord had given up as a bonus prize to our grand prize winner. That went to Ayla. That got shipped out today. I just reimbursed Damien for the shipping cost. So Old School Essentials box set, 4 copies of Fate, a copy of Dungeon World, a copy of Call of Cthulhu, a copy of Blackbirds. We got a lot of prizes going out, so it's all fun stuff. You can call the table Knight Rider. That's a pretty good name. It's going to be the Knight Rider. We did think about maybe doing a riff on the Knight Rider theme as sort of the theme for the vlog. So, what's interesting here, I love that it's just us again. So last time we went live was Thursday, and last week, and we talked about 13th Age. But before that, we talked about the Paizo Orc announcement, and our thumbnail was about the Orc announcement. I've actually split those 2 videos on the channel, so you can go watch that Paizo Orc announcement, and then you can go watch the 13th Age stream separately if you want to. And last week, we had our largest live stream viewer audience ever. We had something like over 250 people live watching the video. And certainly as the night went on, they left, but we still had over 100 people, even when we talked about 13th Age. And then the video quickly gathered a few thousand views, which for us is a very high number. We don't usually get to 5,000 views ever on a video. Maybe a very popular video over the course of a year, if it continues to generate traffic, like our combat and tactics videos, tend to go the distance. Anyways, it was a great little session, or a great little live stream we had there, but it was a little busy. But I'm pleased to see, as I look over here at the statistics here, we're back to 30. So we are back to what we are comfortable with here. And and we separated the wheat from the chaff. Look, that's who we are. That's who I am. I said my piece once there was news. I honestly, if it hadn't been done to death a million trillion times, I probably would have said something about the Wizards of the Coast announcement, because that's a real announcement, not a leak, not something that could have been made up or overstated, even if it was corroborated. But the Wizards of the Coast came out with their statement on Friday, and we could have talked about that, but I knew everybody was going to do that to death. And I probably, honestly, really won't talk about it or mention it until Wizards probably releases their follow-up, statement and finalizes the OGL, and we can understand what the real impact is going to be to not only our existing games, but to Dungeons & Dragons going forward. Every time a new edition of D&D comes out, I want to pay attention. I want to listen. I love new RPGs, and I've been playing D&D for 31 years, so certainly, it's a big deal to me, and it will continue to be a big deal to me. But Frosty says, I think we might have an invasion with Season 2 of the of the Northern Reaches. Yeah, maybe. One thing that I think we need to sort of understand here is what our role needs to be. And I'm talking here to obviously to my regulars. We have so many patrons in the chat. We obviously have a bunch of supporters of the YouTube channel in the form of the adventurers, like Frosty here with the sexy blue loyalty badge. I don't want to be exclusionary, but at the same time, and you know me, I'm not trying to clickbait for views and trying to get people in here that don't need to be here or don't want to be here. And there's a lot of people, quite frankly, who would not feel comfortable and would not have a great time in the Knights of Last Call Discord. And I've said this before. I've said this. I'll say it again. If you are interested in being part of a non-echo chamber, very discourse-heavy conversation, where there's a lot of ideas flowing back and forth and a lot of preconceptions that are going to be judged, then it's a great place for you to go. If you want to learn about crazy RPGs like Heart and Spire. And by the way, when I say crazy RPGs, these are very strange RPGs. Then this is a place to go. So I don't know. I don't know if we're gonna get an invasion or not. We'll see. Northern Reaches will only cost $5 a month, the cost of a Patreon subscription. Well, actually, we're probably going to raise the Northern Reaches prices. So there is that. When is that starting up? Early February. It's not going to, we'll probably get some of the first documents out here in the next 2 weeks. So we'll probably have some documentation out by the end of the year. But in terms of actually the game starting up, people starting to run games, it's going to be into February. Sean, been using the Mythic GME and other tables like UNE, that's the Universal NPC emulator, with my 13th age game that I am running. It's been so much fun doing so little prep. That sounds like a match made in heaven, and it sounds like a perfect combination between 13th Age's easy, open, sort of low prep structure combined with something like the Mythic Gamemaster emulator. We're raising the price. We're just like Wizards of the Coast. Yes, we are. So yeah. Well, what can I say? That's kind of where the state of things are. So tonight, we're going to talk about oracles. And, I'd love to get feedback and thoughts from you as we sort of dive into it and get into it. Of course, as always, if you're new to the channel, please remember to like and subscribe. If you want to hear from us, we go live every Tuesday and Thursday, 7 p.m. Eastern. Sometimes we go do a bonus live stream on like Saturday or Sunday. So make sure you click the bell if you want to be notified for that. And if you're interested in these conversations, you want to show your support for us, for the channel, make sure to use the super chat or use the Stream Elements link that is in the description below. Send us some support, send us some of your love, get your message out on the stream, out on the chat. And of course, you can always join the Patreon, patreon.com/nicelastcall. It's in the link below as well. All right, so oracles. So there's a couple of things here that I want to talk about. I want to talk about my interaction with oracles, and I want to talk about how other people use oracles. But before we get into that, I sort of want to talk about what an oracle is and sort of define the gamut of random tables and oracles, because some people have different definitions. And I don't think that there is a clear and defined definition of exactly what an oracle is. But I do want to sort of separate at least into two categories, two basic ideas of what a oracle is. So let me bring something up here. 1 second. Okay. So, let me bring this up.
Combat Medic Bush tip $25.
Hey, Combat Medic Bush. Combat Medic Bush with a $25 super chat becomes our new hype boss. Thank you, CMB. Great, awesome, and amazing friend of the show. Thank you, CMB. Always one of my favorites. Has been a long-time supporter of the Knights of Last Call. One of our earlier patrons. Probably in the first 20, I think. So thank you so much for that, CMB. Appreciate you being here. So random tables can include a variety of different options. So as an example here, we have the Tome of Adventure Design. All right. Now, this is a book that I am a big fan of. Some people on this channel may have heard me sing this book's praises before. So this is called, this is again called the Toad, as we call it, the Tome of Adventure Design. Actually, a new edition just came out. Didn't really change too much, but it did just come out. So the Tome of Adventure Design is a book that harkens all the way back to the very earliest days of Dungeons and Dragons. And what do I mean by that? I mean that if you go back to the first edition of Dungeons and Dragons, if you go back to the Dungeon Master Guide, and you go about 2/3 of the way into the book, okay, you are going to find random dungeon creator tables. So the original sort of random generators that were provided with the game were dungeon generators, essentially. They were this idea of you could roll and say, I don't know what's in this room. Okay, there's a torture chamber in this room, and it's full of lava, right? It could just be completely random. And I think the idea, the premise that that Gary had intended was that you could use this dungeon generator in one of two ways. You could use it beforehand when you're prepping for the session, and maybe this can help you get some ideas, and it could help maybe come up with an interesting idea that you wouldn't otherwise be able to think of. Or if you're stuck and you need something fresh and new, you could roll on these tables to get some ideas. But the other idea, which he had, was that you could use this dungeon generator at the table. That you could literally, procedurally generate a random dungeon as the party goes through the dungeon. Now, this is where paths split. And by the way, this is back in 1979 when the DMG came out. This is where sort of the path splits in the woods, because I'm of two minds here. Now, there are so let's go back to that second instance. This means that if I have a room and there's a old oaken wooden door, I, the game master, have no idea what is behind that door. I don't know. In fact, that door exists it's not even a quantum state. People talk about the quantum ogre, and they use this terminology incorrectly when they think about random design. Because the concept of quantum ogre is this idea that I have an encounter with an ogre, and there are 3 doors leading out of this room, and regardless of which door the players choose, they are going to encounter this ogre. Maybe it's because I need them to encounter the ogre for my plot. Maybe it's because I need them to encounter the ogre because that's the only combat I prepped, and I need them to encounter it, right? So to be clear, this is not the quantum ogre, because I don't have quantum ogre is all about me, the GM, having this preconceived idea of what needs to be or what must be behind the door. This is a case where I don't understand. I don't know anything. We're just going to open the door and we're going to find out. That is a style of play that some people, even especially on our Patreon, folks like Ben, are a big fan of. And using the Oracle to literally create in situ the dungeon, the environment. I am not as big of a fan of that. And in fact, and again, I know I'm mostly speaking here to patrons, the Tome of Adventure Design, which is a book that I love, is not actually one of Ben's favorite books. And the reason why it's not one of Ben's favorite books is because, and I agree with him on this, by the way, is that the Tome of Adventure Design is not a very good oracle. And this is, again, this whole first part is about definitions. Between the difference between random encounter, random tables, and oracles. The Tome of Adventure Design is, to me and to Ben, a tool that you would use before you play a session. Sure, could I roll on these tables and generate an idea of an interesting location? Of course, I could come up with something like, the gates, the machine gates, or the meat moat. All right, the meat moat sounds pretty cool. But the whole idea behind this book is not to answer questions during play. It's designed to create inspiration to you that will lead you to sort of start thinking about like a meat moat. And this is how Tome of Adventure design works. By the way, I don't know how where your mind's going. I'd love to see your things in chat. But when I hear meat moat, the first thing I'm thinking of is actually a moat full of zombies. And I'm imagining now some sort of palace of a ghoul king that is surrounded by a zombie moat. And it's literally thousands of zombies, right? Scampering all over each other, trying to rip people down. And maybe there's a challenge, it's just how do I get into this keep of the Ghoul King and through the meat moat, and all this other stuff. This is designed to inspire, to push your creativity, and to sort of influence or inspire you to create something new and interesting. And many times I will randomly roll something here, and I will just say, and I'll end up with an idea that has nothing to do with what I rolled. But this weird combination or pairings of words does put me on that path to finding out or figuring out what it is that I wanted to do. But this, I should also, by the way, point out that the Tome of Adventure Design also has stuff in it, in the dungeon section, that's very similar to that first edition AD&D book. There's a random statue. What does the statue look like? What does this random room look like? What are the dimensions of the random room? Right? But these are all sort of describing what is happening. And that's been around since the early, or I should say the late 70s. Even a random encounter table, which generates a random encounter with a group of NPCs or monsters, is really just kind of telling you what is happening. It's not really telling you how or why it's happening. Now, where Tome of Adventure Design gets a little bit, shows some of its modern, I should say, modern inspiration, is in its second chapter. I'm looking it up here to make sure we get it right. Here we go. Okay, no, not even. In the first chapter, which is, it starts talking about things like the villain. And it starts talking about the villain's plan. What is their motivation? Why are they doing this? And so this is now kind of expanding the concept from just simply what's in the room, or, there's a random encounter, what's the monster? And now we're starting to get into this thought process of, okay, but why is the monster here? What does the monster want? Or how is the monster operating? And so this, to me, again, is still primarily and purposefully a prep tool. It's designed to help you be inspired to create random ideas that, quite frankly, you may never have had in your own place, and to add texture and depth to your NPCs. Now, again, could I roll this in the middle of a session? Absolutely. Maybe the PCs, I never knew about the Ghoul King and the meat moat. Okay? We just, it was somehow something that randomly came up in the middle of a session. So I've got here a D100 die generator here. So we randomly come across, I rolled an 85. So what does the Ghoul King want? Reputation. The Ghoul King is trying to enhance his own reputation, either as an invincible villain or as a good person, which would be an infiltration tactic. So yeah, now suddenly we know more about this ghoul, and we're sort of starting to build him up. But this could be a really interesting sort of expanse, just even to your prep process. And I should also note that if you're playing a game where the PCs are allowed to sort of go off the rails and explore whatever they want to explore, a tool like this could be very useful between sessions, because now you're not forced to always have to just create everything from scratch every single time. So I want to catch up with the chat real quick, see if anybody's dropped in. Remember, I'm sorry if I missed something, because whenever I'm reading PDFs and stuff like that, it can be difficult. So if you really want to say something that is definitely going to get my attention, please feel free to tip or to super chat. Let's see here. Someone asked about yes, the second edition is literally just the first edition of the Tome of Adventure design. The only thing that they did is, do you see here on the side margins of every page how there's just random lists of words? That is what they added. And they, by the way, are literally just that. They are random lists of phrases or words just to provide that have no bearing or connection to anything else. It's literally just designed for someone to be like, to be kind of inspired by something silly. So yeah. Okay. Yes, Darth Gorlock got it right. Yes. Okay, there we go. I actually do like these border words. I'm not gonna lie. I think they are really, really good, and I think they're really, really cool. People talking about the meat moat. KC says, I love the toad, but it's great for inspiration, but I don't end up using 95% of what I roll, but it does move me in an interesting direction. And if that's all it did, then that's really great. Dungeon backstory, missions, and the clues part, all very good. I mean, this is a fantastic resource, people. This is a fantastic resource, in my opinion, for the low prep or almost no prep dungeon or a campaign. I won't say no prep, though. It's an almost no prep or low prep. It is very good at sort of inspiring you to go and create interesting ideas out of what your party members are doing. So yeah, very, very good. Meat moat. Everybody talking about the meat moat. So anyways, this is an example of a random generator and a random table. Now, let's talk about oracles a little bit. And one of the ways I want to talk about oracles is I actually want to talk about Blades in the Dark, because I think Blades in the Dark is sort of a intermediary step on our way to oracledom. So Blades in the Dark is a system written by John Harper, and it uses a bunch of D6s, and you roll them, and you're looking for the highest number that you rolled out of that pool of D6. So if you're, are kind of a neophyte, an initiate, you might only roll 1d6. But if you're really powerful or strong in that particular area or aspect, you might roll 2 or 3 or 4d6. Well, Blades in the Dark has this idea called the fortune roll. And it's basically the idea of sometimes we want to roll, and in fact, I'll quote the book here. It says, I'm going to find my mouse. Here we go. It says, you need... There we go. The fortune roll is a tool that the GMs can use to disclaim decision making. And that is a phrase that you may have heard me say before on this channel. You may have heard me say it in the Discord, which is disclaiming decision making. This is the idea, and this is very radical. Because if we go back to the Tome of Adventure design, right? That's me as a game master. Maybe I'm sitting at home. I've got my stack of dice. I'm rolling. I'm coming up with interesting ideas for what this, next session's going to be. I'm like, oh, the Ghoul King wants reputation. He wants to be the Lord of the Undead. Well, how would he do that? Well, he might actually have to kill the necromancer that lives in the tower, because he sees the necromancer. She's a threat to his power. And so the Ghoul King actually kind of wants to fight the necromancer. And again, I'm not saying how that's going to end up. I'm simply building factions, and I'm simply setting NPCs with different agendas into motion. And then I'm letting the PCs come in there and do what the PCs do, which is get involved and screw everything up. And hopefully save the day, make things better. Hopefully. But ultimately, I'm in control. Even if I'm rolling on this random table at home and I'm prepping, I'm in control. The fortune roll is about disclaiming decision making. It's about the game master in the session saying, I don't want to make a decision. I'm giving up my option to make a decision. That is something very strange, because that is not something that most GMs are used to doing. Most GMs are used to being the ones who are always in control. And why wouldn't you want to be in control? You have an important story to tell, right? You have an adventure path that you need to guide or move along. Blades in the Dark and John Harper sort of clarifies this by saying sometimes the GM doesn't know what's going to happen. And sometimes the GM themselves doesn't want to know what's going to happen. So John writes that the fortune tool is a tool that the GM can use to disclaim decision making, and you can use the fortune roll in two ways. One, when you need to make a determination about a situation the PCs aren't directly involved in, and you don't want to just decide the outcome, right? He gives an example here of two opposing gangs, the Lamp Blacks and the Red Sashes, and they go to war. How does that turn out? Well, the GM could just make a decision. They might base it off of story reasons. They might base it off of logic. They might say, well, the Lamp Blacks have more people than the Red Sashes. Maybe the GM is very, very bored, and they decide to stat everybody out as people and play out the entire encounter by themselves to determine what's going to happen. They can do all those things, but none of those really matter, right? Because the PCs aren't directly involved. So why not we just, I don't have a lot of stake in this. The PCs don't have a lot of stake in this. So let's just find out what happens. Now, why would a GM roll instead of just making their mind up? And the answer is, this is where the link is, just like the Tome of Adventure Design can inspire us and take us in interesting new directions creatively because of these random results that didn't come from within our brain. Disclaiming decision-making and leaving it up to the dice can be a very powerful storytelling tool because suddenly it creates unexpected outcomes. All right? And that can be very, very, very powerful from a storytelling perspective because now the GM, possibly even with the player's help, suddenly has to ground that back to the reality, to the fiction of your ongoing game. Like if we all understand, theoretically, that the Lamp Blacks have the big advantage when they attack the Red Sashes, we can give them more dice and give them a higher chance of rolling a higher number. Remember, you're going to take the highest number. Let's say we have them roll 4 6-sided dice. And we expect, oh, they're going to get a 5 or a 6. And what if they all come up 1, 1, 1, 2? And the highest number we have is a 2. And suddenly you go, I did not expect that to happen. And now I get to make a fun moment in the game, possibly with my players, which is, well, the dice are telling me that the Lamp Blacks lost. Okay, how did that happen? Why did that happen? And figuring that out, both selfishly as a game master, but even as a group working together, can be really, really fun. And that's kind of the reason, in my opinion, that a GM would use a fortune roll, okay? It's because it's exciting. It's fun. It's fun for you. It's fun for your players. Yeah, it can up the difficulty level of it, right? Like, what's more difficult? Writing a speech or giving a speech? There are people who would say that writing a speech is way more difficult. I'm one of those people. If you're waiting for Battlecry 3, you know that I am a very slow/bad writer because I do not have a great ease with expressing myself through the written word. Whereas Aaron is a hell of a writer, an incredible writer. He can generate thousands of words per day. I'm not that good, okay? So I have an easier time giving a speech. So it's the same thing with like D&D or a role-playing game, where some people might want the fun and the excitement of sort of having to figure it out on the fly, which is a skill, and arguably you could say it's a challenge. But what are you saving? Well, I'm saving myself all of the tedium and all of the work that would have had to go into prepping this in advance and having this all mapped out and having a big adventure with everything filled out and et cetera, et cetera. In fact, one of the reasons why I get so stressed out when I play adventure paths is because now there's something for me to mess up, right? Now there's a correct line that can be taken, that can be messed up. Suddenly, if the party blows up something or kills some NPC, I know that there are pages and pages and paragraphs and maybe whole chapters that are in the next coming books that are going to be screwed up, messed up, and now I got to figure it all out and rework the whole damn thing. That sounds like way more work to me, and I don't even want to do that. But if I'm just making it up as I go along, there's nothing for me to throw away. If the party decides to just cut left and blow up the fortress and then run off into the woods, great. I didn't have anything planned anyways. There's no use crying over spilled milk. There was no spilled milk, right? So the key here is I don't want to decide the outcome. And the other option is the outcome is uncertain. We're all smart people. If we could sit around here and we can't ever imagine a world where the lamp blacks would ever lose, then why are we rolling dice? If you're just going to make up the information anyways, if you already know what the outcome is, don't roll dice. If you're going to roll dice, it's because you are committing to the idea that you want some randomness in your world or into your situation that is going to create interesting outcomes. And I think that is the key. And I see there's some chat going on about this. Do not be, and this is going to sound like contradictory statements, don't be a slave, a thrall to the results of these. But at the same time, don't just ignore them either. If I'm going to roll on the table, it's because we want to introduce something interesting, and we want to introduce something unexpected, and we want to introduce something new into our game, which is great. But also, the fiction is paramount, and logic and the power of our established fictional norms is very important. And this kind of loops back to the beginning of this stream, which is why and how I use oracles, and why, for most of my life, I have never, ever used procedurally generated dungeons on the fly. Why? Because I think that there is a risk when you use oracles or when you use these fortune rolls or these fortune outcomes. And that is crazy, stupid nonsense that doesn't make any sense, that doesn't tie into anything else that we were establishing or doing, but we are just generating random nonsense for the sake of generating random nonsense. I don't like that. That is, to me, that kind of defeats the purpose of the role-playing game. I want there to be this ability for the players to logically and logistically plan for what is going to happen around them. And I want events that transpire in the future to have a connection going back to prior events which have occurred before. To give a great example, dungeon design for Dungeon 23, if there's a room with, let's say, a den of basilisks, or maybe a Medusa lair, and maybe this Medusa lair is pretty. The basilisk or the Medusa is pretty powerful, right? It's a difficult encounter for the level that our PCs are, right? It has a real chance of turning them to stone or whatever, what have you. Excuse me. Well, then I don't want to, just spring that on them. I don't want to just say, okay, you open up the door, there's a Medusa. And then the players are like, what, a Medusa? And I go, I didn't know there was a Medusa there. I just rolled it. That to me is, I don't find that compelling gameplay. I really don't. Much more interesting to me is for the party, maybe over the course of several rooms, they keep seeing, first they find, a bunch of shattered stone dust, Or maybe they find like a stone hand and they think, oh, maybe it's part of a statue. And they keep finding all these shattered stone bodies. And then they finally find like 2 stone statues. And maybe they have this ability to go, oh, okay, maybe there's some sort of Medusa or basilisk nearby. Are we prepared for that? Are we not prepared for that? Okay. And then when they open up the door, yes, there's a Medusa or a basilisk. And they go, I feel rewarded for having interpreted the signs around us. And correctly determining that there was a Medusa here. If all of that stuff is just coming out randomly, you will never get that satisfaction of sort of figuring it out. It's very hard to foreshadow. It's very hard to sort of plan ahead with these things. And I'm just happy it was empty. And that is where I think people can get themselves into trouble with these rolls. Is if, number one, the outcome doesn't tie logically back into your narrative. It has to tie logically back into your narrative. I cannot stress this enough. Whether it's you randomly creating a dungeon or generating an outcome from an event, I still feel like it needs to make sense. It needs to tie back in. And just because it's interesting and fun because it's random doesn't necessarily mean it's going to be good in the long term for the health of your game. And so that's why I think you need to be very, very careful with it as a tool. But, I want to mention Blades in the Dark one last time, which is, they talk about how when you make this random roll or make this determination, part of it is you using what you know about the fiction or about the scenario into making your fortune roll. So, for example, if you have if the gang in particular is higher quality or higher tier or higher level than the other gang, or if they have some sort of special bonus for this particular type of situation, you can give them more dice to make a certain outcome more likely than the other. But at the end of the day, it's a great example of just rolling randomly to determine what next. Here's a great, here they have a great example here of the PCs instigate a war between the 2 factions. Then they sit back and watch the fireworks. They don't even have the archetype. How does it turn out? Does either side dominate? Are they both made vulnerable by the conflict? Make a few fortune rolls to find out. I'm the GM. I don't have any skin in the game. And you know what? It'll be interesting. I think we'll all appreciate randomly finding out who did they both get screwed over? Did they ally together and then come after us? Like, what is going to happen here? It's fun, it's exciting, and most importantly, I don't have to prep any of it. I don't have to do any of it. All right? A strange sickness, the cold slumber, is sweeping through the city. How badly is Crow's Foot, that's a neighborhood, hit by the outbreak? The GM assigns a magnitude to the arcane's plagues and makes a fortune roll to judge the extent of the contamination. Look, plague is unleashed, it's sweeping through the districts. What happens? I don't know. When I played in the Blades in the Dark game, I won't get into the full story of it, but the gang of PCs opened up or set off a bomb that tore a hole between the ghost dimension and reality, allowing untold thousands of ghosts to rip through into the real world. If you've seen like the ending of Ghostbusters when they blow up the containment unit, it was like that. And they blew it up in the middle of a populated neighborhood. And I said, they're like, well, what happens? And I said, I don't know. Let's find out. And so I grabbed some D6 and we kind of, explained, okay, well, you tore a factor 3 explosion. So we'll start with 3 dice. This neighborhood doesn't have a lot of imperial protection or people who would be good at dealing with ghosts. So we'll add a 4th dice and now we'll roll. And if we get a 6, then, or a double 6s, it becomes hell on earth. Everybody's killed. It's a critical, success for the ghosts. If we roll, the highest we roll is a 1, 2, or a 3, we'll say it wasn't that bad, but now the nights, people are locked inside their houses, ghosts are roaming the streets, Slimer is driving the bus, it's dogs and cats living together, it's pandemonium. And we rolled, and we found out what happened. The very end of that campaign, a PC, believed that they had created some sort of miracle concoction that would allow them to escape into the afterlife. And then they drank it, and then they threw themselves into an electric fence in order to find out if they were right. And they said, well, was I right? And I said, I don't know if you were right. Let's roll to find out. And we just rolled on a fortune table to see if she was right, and did she ascend into the heavenly paradise that awaits her, or did she just get burned to death on the fence? And she just got burned to death on the fence. Sometimes it just doesn't work out. So these random tables are useful for helping you prep. But an oracle, like the Mythic Gamemaster Emulator. This is the first edition, by the way. There's a new edition out, which is very popular. I think it's number 1 on DriveThruRPG right now. But I cannot say for sure which is better, because I have not read the second edition yet, so I can't speak to what it is. But to be clear, this oracle is designed in some part to potentially even take the place of the Game Master. Books like this led the way for games like Ironforge and for Starforged, which are very popular games. And while they can be played as a group with a Game Master, they are designed to be played collaboratively without a Game Master, or more importantly, solo without a Game Master. The reason why those games can work as a solo game is because of oracles. And these oracles prompt you and force you, as even a collaborative group or a solo player, to create and deal with unexpected challenges. Flint Fireforge says, so AI in book form. Yeah, kinda, right? It's a series of prompts and ideas, Flint, that are designed to be a fun, creative exercise for you. I had an English teacher in high school, I don't remember which one it was, who basically said something along the lines of, if I asked you to write me a short story, just 5 or 10 pages, and about anything, you might sit there racking your brain. I've given you complete freedom to write a short story about anything, and you only have, a little bit of time to write it. And you might be sitting there going like, I could write about anything. What do I write about? But if I tell you, okay, you have 2 hours to write me a short story about an old kitchen table. And that's the only prompt I'm going to give you, is an old beat up kitchen table. I think most of us are suddenly going to feel that it's an easier assignment than if it was just anything, right? You think anything should be simpler, but it's not. Having direction, having sort of guidance and purpose, and now having to be creative within the confines of the prompt is not only easier, but it's also fun. It's a creative challenge to create a story that sort of now is rooted around the prompt. And that is what a book like the Mythic Gamemaster Emulator does. This is an oracle in the truest sense of the word, because the oracle, this is not designed for helping you prep a session. This is designed to, you ask it questions, like an oracle, and it is going to give you answers. And the heart of the Mythic Gamemaster Emulator is the fate chart. Okay? And this is our fate chart. I'll zoom in a little bit. But the idea of this is actually pretty simple. It uses as an input our human understanding, our human logic, and then as an output, it gives us a % chance. Now, this seems very simple and basic, but it's surprisingly effective. And along the bottom, there is something called the chaos rank, or chaos factor. And at chaos factor 5, which is where the table's in the middle, it basically means that if we, as humans, we judge this situation to be 50-50 chance, then the actual table or the result will have a 50-50% chance of happening. Makes sense. As the chaos rank goes up, the more and more likely it is that something is going to happen. And as the chaos rank goes down, the less and less likely that something is going to happen. And remember, the whole idea of this fate chart is, and again, not everybody uses this the same way that I would use this. For me, the way that I would use this fate chart is to answer kind of like the fortune roll from Blades in the Dark. I would use it to answer big questions that we do not necessarily have an answer to, but are important, right? They're important. I don't want to be the game master that is rolling on this to determine, you know, when you ask if the bar serves wine, I don't want to roll on this, okay? Some people might. I don't want to.
Lollipop Candy tip.
Hey, thank you, Lollipop Candy.
There are different ways to use tools like oracles and random tables. Understanding the pros and cons of the different approaches will broaden our horizon. P.S. Good luck having co-LC break even for 2023.
Thank you. I'm very confident that we are actually going to make some money in 2023. I still have to do my taxes for 2022. If I'm being honest with you, I kind of hope that I lost money in 2022 because then I can claim it as a deduction on my taxes and get a little bit back at refund time. Whereas if I made money, I'll have to owe taxes. So I'm kind of hoping for that. But yeah, I agree. You know, I think Lollipop makes a great example here, or a great point here, which is these are tools. They're tools. They're designed to help you. You should never feel like these are something that is you're struggling to use or that are difficult for you. These are supposed to be a tool to help you make your game more fun. Now, I will say, going back to what John Harper said, you may not be comfortable with this at first. You want to have an answer for everything. As a GM, you want to be in control. I mean, I hate to say it, I think a lot of GMs are control freaks. I know that I like GMing, and I know that when I am a player and I am sitting in a player's seat, even if I have an incredible game master running a game for me, like Mr. Smith, there are times where I feel very frustrated because I'm like, no, I want to be in control, right? I want to have all the, I want to be the one who's like, oh, I would do this, or I would have done it this way, or I would have done it this way. Part of this, and there's like there's sort of an uncomfortableness with being a player because you don't know everything. As a GM, you know everything. It's all very, there's no surprises for you. This is all about surprising you, even as the game master. And I also cannot stress this enough. Again, this is how I use it. I like to bring my players into these conversations. I know that for some people that breaks down the walls, but I'm not using this for determining something like, did the bar run out of beer? I'm using this for something like, okay, we have, I'll give you a great example of a time I used this. Recently, last year, my home group, which includes, people like Bob and Aaron, but also some folks that you guys, and Kaz, and some people you don't know, like my buddy Rich, who's sometimes in the chat, my buddy George, who's usually in the chat as well. We were playing 5th edition D&D, and we were running B2 Keep on the Borderland, okay? Classic module, updated for 5th edition from Goodman Games. And so we played through the whole Caves of Chaos. I think it took us about 10 or 11, maybe 12 sessions to get through the Caves of Chaos. Early on, they went and they killed some of the goblins, but not all the goblins. And then they, through a secret door, found the ogre's cave. And I rolled randomly. Was the ogre at home? And I said, well, you know what? It's during the day. He probably would stay in his cave during the day. So, I would say that there's probably like a 70% chance that he would be, or like a 75% chance that he would be at home during the day. I rolled, he wasn't home. So the PCs went in there and they stole all the ogre stuff. And then they're dwarves, so they also peed on his bed. Good on ya. There's Bob chiming in. Okay, so the PCs had all this ogre gold that they stolen. They came in through the goblin's secret door. Then they went back out through the goblin's secret door and they went back to their camp several miles away. Their sort of fortified camp. Well, they came back the next day, and I had to make a decision. So the ogre comes back. He discovers his treasure is missing. What does the ogre do? I was well within my right as a game master to make up whatever I want. But I had this sort of conversation with my players. I said, okay, so the ogre's going to come back. He's going to see his treasures missing. He's going to see, if he looks, that someone has gone through his secret door. I think there's a chance he thinks the goblin stole his treasure. And everyone was like, okay. And so I said, okay, if I roll an 8 or less or something, or a 7 or less on the D20, the ogre thought the goblins did it. And I rolled it right in front of the screen, right in the middle of everybody. We're playing in person. And, I rolled like a 5 or something like that. And I was like, okay, yeah, the ogre came back, thought the goblin stole his treasure, and he went on a rampage. And so the group goes back there into the goblins, and there are just dead goblins everywhere. And the ogre has basically just rampaged through the goblins all the way to the goblin chieftain and killed the goblin chieftain, the boss of the caves. And then when the party gets there, they discover that the ogre is sitting there badly injured. Because, yeah, the goblins, he killed all the goblins, but they kind of messed him up a little bit. And so then the party fought him because he was kind of like, you leave me alone, I'll give you half the treasure. And they're like, nah, we think you're weak enough and you can take it. And so the group fought the ogre, and they were level 1. And they won because he was so badly injured from the goblins. So not only did they get all the ogre's treasure, they got all the goblins' treasure too. And they didn't even have to fight half the goblins. And they fought the ogre when he was he started at quarter hit points. All of that came because of random rolls on an oracle chart. Because I disclaimed decision making, and it was exciting for me because it wasn't coming from some plan that I had in a box. There was never a point when we sat down to play B2, Keep on the Borderlands, with my friends that I thought, I can't wait for when the ogre attacks the goblins and then the party fights him in the goblin chieftain's cave when he's all injured. It's not in the module. It's nothing I would have thought of, right? Because that doesn't seem balanced. Wait, so the party gets all the gold and they get to fight a weakened ogre, but it happened, and it was fun, and it was funny, and it was awesome, and more importantly, it was fun for me, because I didn't know that was going to happen, and so I got to legitimately be surprised by what was happening as it was unfolding. So the philosophy of using something like this is the idea of being as a GM and saying, I don't have to make every decision, and if it's sort of a big decision, I can just trust it to fate, and we can sit down and we can be entertained together. But Mythic Gamemaster Emulator also has another tool available to it, which is which is the idea of rolling on the random event table. Now, this is getting more into when we were talking about the Tome of Adventure Design, and we were talking about, you can have it's a random dungeon, it's the meat mode, right? But there's also this idea of, okay, but what about motivations? What about ideas? What about things that are happening inside of our game? We talked about this villainous motivation. What is the villain doing, and what are they doing? And it's like, okay. They want to, I roll here and I said, okay, he's trying to convert others to his way of thinking because I rolled randomly. And then we roll on the conversion chart and, he's using demonic gifts. So the Ghoul King is going out and he is, I'm like, demonic gifts doesn't really make much sense. He's a ghoul. He's creating these sort of half undead princes that serve him and receive all the benefits of being undead if they serve the Ghoul King's plans to take out the necromancer or whatever. And we start to understand his motivation a little bit. The Oracle can also be used in this moment when something unexpected happens in your game. And you want to introduce something that is going to sort of keep the game flowing. That's going to be the next possibility that will happen. If you're playing a game like Blades in the Dark or a Powered by the Apocalypse game, you know that in those games, if the PC rolls low, if the PC rolls a 6- in Blades Powered by the Apocalypse, or if they roll a 1, 2, 3 in Blades in the Dark, there's this idea that the GM can make a hard move, or they can create a major complication. Ben, and that's it. And when you go to the back of the book of Powered by the Apocalypse, they talk about the different moves that a GM could make. And one of the moves that the GM can make is, create danger. You can show signs of impending doom. You could offer the PCs something with or without a price, right? It's this idea that when the party rolls badly, or if the party is looking for you to see what happens next, that's when you make a move in Powered by the Apocalypse. By the way, I know Powered by the Apocalypse gets really cute with this. The concept of the GM move is an abstraction, right? You're not actually like taking a move like you would in like a board game. It's giving terminology to what game masters do anyways. The PC rolled low on a check. The GM says what happens. The PCs do something, and then they turn to the GM and say, what happens? And the GM will tell them. That's a GM move in Powered by the Apocalypse term. But this is this idea of taking that concept, and instead of me having to make something up, right, I can just roll randomly for it. And we can all be surprised by what happens. So, for example, I might roll, you guys go to the Ghoul King, but before you go to the Ghoul King, you know what you say? We're not going to the Ghoul King. We want to go to the Necromancer. And we want to find out what happens at the Necromancer's body. And I go, I didn't plan for this. I have no idea what's going to happen if they go to the Necromancer's tower. We can roll on this event focus table, and I get a 2. So it is a remote event. And then we roll the meaning, which has an action, which I got a 44, which is release. And then we get a subject, which is an 82, which is dispute. And here we have probably the number one reason that people say they don't like oracles. Remote event, release, dispute. And that's all you get. It's my understanding, I haven't read it yet, but it's my understanding that the second edition of the GME is, quote, less vague, which could be a strength, but it also could be a weakness, because I like vague results because I think that makes it more fun. But the real key to making sense of this, and I know this isn't for everybody, that's okay. Maybe you're a creative genius and you like to do this on your own. But for me, I love to include my players. Not the player characters, my friends, my players, when I roll on something like this. I roll and I tell them, we got remote event, release, dispute. Let's talk about that as a group if we need to. What does that mean, guys? And maybe they come up with something and somebody gives an idea, somebody else gives an idea, you bounce it back and forth. It doesn't have to be a big thing, but people are involved. People are contributing. People are, working together. Release dispute might mean that, like, maybe the Necromancer had some powerful undead that it was under its control, that he couldn't control, but he released it because he thought, well, if I release this uncontrollable beast, then the Ghoul King is going to have to deal with that. And that's, absolutely, better than me being destroyed. And so the Necromancer, had this powerful creature locked away because he couldn't control it. And now he set it free. And now it's rampaging through. And it's a remote event. So it didn't just happen where the PCs are, right? They hear about it, or they see the signs. They come across a village that they had just been at a few days earlier, and it's destroyed. And maybe they find a survivor in the wreckage who tells them about this horrific beast, this undead, calamity that is now rampaging through the realm. And now we've added this new X factor, right, into the equation. And it came because of an oracle. Would you have come up with that? Would I have come up with that? No, probably not, right? But that was my interpretation of it. I'm saying what I'm saying right now. Release dispute, remote event release dispute. You all could have a completely different interpretation of that. But it's going to be guided, and it's going to have some pressingness towards action. And I think that's what really comes down to these oracles and making them useful. You want to present situations, not plots. You want to create new factors that the party is going to have to engage with, and the party is going to have to deal with eventually in some capacity. But the best part about it is you had no idea what was going to be happening until it happened. And that's what makes these things so fun. And believe it or not, just these two tables plus this sort of event focus is all you really need, in theory, to run an entire campaign. But I will stress again, it is fine to disclaim decision-making when you don't know what's going to happen or when you legitimately want to be surprised. But I urge you, don't destroy the internal consistency of your game. If the party takes action A, and that would logically lead to consequence B, and probably part of the party's reasoning for doing A was because they assumed, based off of logic and reasoning, maybe even conversations with you, the game master, that B was going to occur, and then you decide to just randomly roll on it anyways. I think it destroys the integrity of your game. I think you know what it's like? I call it the Mario Party effect. I'm calling it now. Fucking hate Mario Party. I hate Mario Party so much. You know why? Because you play the game and they tell you, win the mini games, get stars, most stars, win the game. So you play the mini games and you crush your opponents and you have the most stars and you get to the end of the game and that's when they tell you randomly, we're going to give out a bunch of random stars to people. And you don't even know which players we're going to get the random stars to begin with because it's random each time. And then, you know, your little sister ends up winning and she sucks at the mini games. And you know what? That's not a game anymore, right? We're playing the game of life. We're playing Candyland, right? Which are not games. Those are just pointless pastimes. In fact, arguably, they're gambling, roulette, craps, just without any money. You're just wasting your time. And so Bob goes, I love Mario Party. And then he says, and I just played Candyland tonight. Don't shit on Mario Party. Mario Party is probably one of the single worst games that has ever been created that is considered mainstream and popular ever, and is horrible. Not bad for a drinking game. I will bow to that. In fact, most drinking games are inherently pointless. They are bad games, but they are bad games by design because their purpose is to get you to drink. So in that regard, they succeed. I love the mini games, but I hate the board game for the reasons Derek said. I'm canceling my Patreon. No. Darth, isn't it enough that Bob has owned every Mario Party? So yeah, the point is, don't let the Oracle become the bullshit star prizes of your Mario Party campaign, right? Because if the players earned a victory and they made multiple decisions in order because they were expecting outcomes to occur, and we all agree that these are logically conclusive outcomes, don't ruin it by just randomly throwing in something that makes no sense, because you're going to destroy the integrity of your game. And I don't just mean that from like the fictional standpoint of the verisimilitude, but I also mean the game aspect of it, the part of the players are engaging with this as a game entity, a board game space, a possibility space where they are taking actions, they are using their limited resources in order to accomplish actions, in order to instill consequences or positive benefits for their, that align with their motivations and their goals. So yeah, like I like using oracles, But I will be the first to admit you can use them too much. And you can create a lot of randomness that feels icky and feels pointless. I think if something is trivial, I wouldn't want to roll in this anyways. Why bother with it? Just make it up and move it along. It's not important enough to even take the handful of seconds that it would take to roll in this. On the other hand, if the PCs are, following a line of logical conclusions, then they are doing so under the auspices that this is going to lead to a consequence that is in line with those. I don't remember which book said it. Might be Hamlet's Hit Points. Oh, I don't even remember what book it was. There's some RPG book where it says, don't use red herrings in TTRPGs. Don't. It's a bad idea. It's fine in novels and TV shows, but like almost universally, it is a bad idea in TTRPGs. The medium just doesn't work well for like red herrings. So you want the randomness to surprise players and to delight the players. You don't want it to frustrate them, and you don't want it to create a bad game experience. So you need to be very careful. And that, there was an Alexandrian article. That could have been Brutus. I've read everything Justin Alexander's ever written. So that makes total sense that is where I read it. So there you go. Perfect. Well, Justin's a very smart man. I think we all knew that, but he's a very smart man. So yeah, fantastic advice there from him. All right, so let's see what we got here. Sean says, context is absolutely king with these tables. Sean, I couldn't agree with you anymore. The tables themselves are fine and fun, but when you can tie it back into the game elements, I think that's what makes it, if you can tie it into the existing context of your game world, that is where it becomes really awesome. And you can have it make sense. And the players are like delighted with it because it's like you're picking up the threads that are already in play and you're just weaving a new complication or a new idea or a new element into the story, which I think is really, really fantastic. And I really love it. Sean also says, don't use a simple yes, no to answer the question of is the party correct in their assumption, but use a no, but, yes, but, yes, and system. Sure. Yeah, I'm not saying that you can't complicate things. And the answer should very rarely, if ever, be just as simple as no. So I very much agree with that, because again, failure is boring, but so is success, right? What's the line from the end of the Gene Wilder, Charlie and the Chocolate Factory? He says, do you know the story of the boy who got everything he wanted? And he says, no, what happened? He goes, he lived happily ever after, which is great. Happily ever after is really boring for a fantasy or sci-fi or whatever adventure game, right? We want our PCs, what's Dungeon World say? Fill our lives with adventure and danger, right? We want things to always be spiraling, and we want things to always be escalating. The PCs should be able to earn their victories, their hard-fought victories, their hard-earned victories. But we should never want, unless we're ready for the game to end, we should never be like, and that resolves everything completely cleanly, there's no complications, roll credits, end of story. Think about some of your favorite movie trilogies. Think about the original Star Wars movies. Oh my God, it's the Death Star. Oh my God, they're coming. We blew it up. Fantastic, right? End of story. No, because then there wouldn't be sequels. And we like our characters. We want to play them again in the next adventure. So we start on the next center. It's Hoth. And sure, the Death Star is blown up, but now the entire Imperial fleet is searching for us. Did they find us? Yes. Why? Because that way the campaign continues. And that way we get to keep playing the game that we're all enjoying. If you were like, well, nope, the Empire is, what are the odds that the Empire is completely destroyed and the campaign is over? I don't know, 30%. Let's roll it. Well, I rolled a 22, so All right, everybody, you won. The campaign's over. Great campaign. I guess next week we'll play, I don't know, Castles and Crusades. Maybe we'll play 4th edition D&D. I don't know. We'll find out. Bob wants to play Avatar Legends. Maybe we'll play that. And that's it. I wouldn't do that because, you should keep the game going. You should respond to the players. I don't think there's anything wrong with treating our games like games and say, we enjoy this and we want to keep playing this, and we should make sure that we are making decisions, even through random tables, that are going to lead to fun. Doesn't always mean that we won, by the way, but lead to interesting and fun outcomes. If your random tables are putting you into a box, if they're pushing you into a corner, if they're just resolving everything and then now there's nothing fun to deal with, then they're failing you, right? Because the whole idea here is to push you into more adventure, more excitement, more interesting outcomes. And that even gets back to this chaos factor, which I was talking about earlier. I don't want to get too much in the book. It's 40 pages. It's a couple of bucks. Just go buy it. The idea that you should be asking on this thing, you should be asking the big questions, right? You should be asking the questions like, do the orcs, are the orcs wiped out? Or do they succeed in destroying the town, right? That's a big question. As the chaos factor goes up, the answer is going to be yes more often, which means that the answer is going to be yes, the situation did escalate. Yes, the necromancer did unleash their ultimate weapon. Yes, the king of ghouls was successful in his ritual and raised all of the dead within a 20-mile radius from their graves and now has joined him in an army of zombies. The meat motes come to life. Right, your game is going to, get out of control. We're getting a little off topic here, but it's like with Blades in the Dark. Having multiple clocks is a good thing. It's nice for the party to feel like the world is bigger than that they can manage. And yeah, we're awesome and we're cool and we can go deal with, this clock, and we can go deal with this clock, and we can go deal with this clock maybe, but there's still 2 or 3 clocks that are ticking, and we have to make important decisions here. We don't just get to say, yep, 100% complete, full clear, we dealt with this, we dealt with that, we dealt with that, we dealt with that. We killed the bad guy, we made it to the dinner party, we were elected prom king, we won the lottery, we washed our car, we made up with our mother, we saved a relationship with our girlfriend, we did it all, everything is successful, 100%, no problems, right? We don't want that. Not in most genres. If you're playing like a very, very 4-color, super kid-friendly superhero game, you might want a game like that. But most games, most mature games, are going to have, things that you don't get to. But you don't want to put so many clocks out there that the party feels overwhelmed or insignificant. And that's where, again, having too many random events that just keep coming can start to make the players feel like they've got too many spinning plates. For me, generally speaking, I think, I like the numbers 3 and 5. I think usually having like 3 to 5, sort of various things that are happening. Maybe some things are really important, but have a long timeline. Maybe some things are very urgent, but it's not the most important thing in the world. But it could, it doesn't mean that it's trivial, right? Destroy the world, but it's going to happen over the next couple of years versus, your favorite little roadside inn is about to be destroyed by orc brigands tomorrow, right? It's not going to destroy the world. If the orcs destroy it, it's not like the world will keep on spinning pretty much unabated, but it might be important to you. So again, this is where, it's nice to have these sort of different textures of events and threats that are moving around. RFC is in the chat. You have 6.66K subs. You are the devil. Yes, Steven, I think you got 6.66K subs like yesterday. So, as in plus 6.66. There was a time when before all this shenanigans happened, by the way, we were like twice the size of Roll for Combat. I want to let you know that. When we used to go to his channel, right, we were bringing our big audience onto his channel, with his 3K subs or 4K subs or whatever. We had 5, 6K subs, 7K subs. Now he's double us, more than double us. Everybody blew up, Steven, except for me, which is good. That's okay. You know why it's good? Because the people that needed to talk about it talked about it. That's good. You did make a deal with the devil. I completely agree with that. Undead meat moat. Yeah, the meat moat is a very popular idea. I like it a lot. We could play Avatar in Candyland. That's an interesting idea, right? Like, I'm going to airbend Gumdrop Forest. Hey, thanks, Darth Gorlock.
$30. Just sipping to say, switching to random table / oracle based Ming for me and really propelled more emergent games. I can't stress how much everyone should at least try it out, and slowly introduce it and expand its usage to their comfort level and system.
That's awesome. Yeah, I mean, Darth, became a huge proponent of this. I think, Darth, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think a lot of it, did it start with Battlecry 1 and some of the charts that we had in there that Smith put in there with the random encounters for Pathfinder 2 and sort of the idea behind that? I think that's where that really started. I could be wrong, but, it's a very different way of playing than your traditional. Okay, Darth's saying it started with Blaze in the Dark. Okay, great. Yeah, well, Blaze in the Dark is fantastic about this as well. You could use this in your standard game, but this is pretty much the anti-adventure path. And I'm not really trying to say that either is better, because like I said, there are some people who like to give speeches, and there are some people who like to write speeches, okay? There are some people who like to listen to a book, and there's some people who like to read a book. You're still doing work. It just depends on what you personally feel is work. If you think prepping a session, reading a ton, understanding all of the moving pieces, maybe even writing your own work is fun, engaging, makes you feel at peace and calm when you're running a game, then I think that is a fantastic, way for you to play. But if that sounds horrible and tedious to you, as it kind of does to me, then this is a very, very, very powerful tool, because this will allow you to sort of not always have to just rely on your own imagination, your own creativity. You can be inspired by randomness. And I think that is a fantastic tool. Now, again, how much you get inspired is a balancing act. I reiterate that I do not think you should go too ham on this. Now, but kind of while we're on the subject, people are saying that APs could be harvested. They're great mines for ideas. Let me be clear about this. From a strict gaming perspective, an AP is way more useful mechanically than something like this, right? This is an idea generator. This, maybe you're not interested in, maybe you're not interested in the plot of the group going through the Lost Mammoth Valley. Maybe they did something completely different in your game. But guess what? This has got art that you can steal. It's got NPC stats, pre-made encounters. It's got battle mats and areas that you can use. Okay. From a strict gaming perspective, these are way more useful, right? Way more useful. If you're looking to just get the meat of the game, go get an adventure path. I might not get this one. I don't think this one's really good, but our friend Steven is here. Jewel of the Indigo Isles is out, available. I don't know if it's available except for to the people who kickstarted it, but if you did kickstart it, I've been told it's a very good adventure path, and I think Steven is ultimately waiting with bated breath to see what I think about it, considering how much of a harsh judge I am about adventure paths. That being said, just because you're playing an adventure path doesn't mean that you can, that you might not go off the beaten path, and that doesn't mean that you couldn't use something like this in order to help inspire you to make your adventure path your own and to make it something truly unique for you and your friends. Hey, we got a super chat from Sean. Have you ever played a solo GM-less game? Yes, I've played Ironsworn. Actually, I played it I didn't play it solo. Oh no, we didn't play Ironsworn. We played Starforged. We played it for 3 sessions or maybe 4 sessions. We played it collaboratively. Sorry, I keep saying Starforged. Thank you. What do I keep saying? Iron Sworn, Starforged. That's it. Okay, thank you. Which is, Star Sworn. They really needed to work on their naming there. Okay, can we just admit that? Okay. Anyways, so have I ever played a solo / GM-less campaign? Yes, I have played Starforged. So yes, not Ironsworn, but Starforged. I think playing those kind of games helps someone GM effectively in a prepless way and use these oracles quite efficiently. I think playing those games absolutely is an incredible way to get familiar and comfortable with that. We played it collaboratively. As Aaron says, technically we are still playing it right now because we never took the end of session or end of campaign move. I think we took the take a break move to go play a 5th edition campaign, which then ended. So technically we are now back into the Starforged game. So yes, that is correct. How did I feel about it? It didn't feel like a game to me. It felt like, and I'm going to use terms here that people will know. It felt like a game the way that playing Microscope is a game. A game which I've talked about before. It's a PDF. It's called Dawn of Worlds, which is a collaborative world building game where each player can, represent sort of like a god, and you're like creating a world. You can like raise mountains and create new races and, craft rivers and towns and civilizations. But it's not really a game. You're not really trying to win or lose. You're more just sort of, collaboratively storytelling, but with some qualifications, right? It's kind of like a game on whose line is it anyways. We're just improvising. We're just riffing. But there's a qualification for this game. Every statement you make has to be in the form of a question. And if it's not in the form of a question, you'll get buzzed, and then you just go to the back of the line, and we just keep playing the game until we decide it's over. It's fun. It's an activity. I don't know that I would call it a game. So my general feeling of Starforged, Ironsworn : Starforged, is that I thought it was entertaining and interesting, the same way that I think playing a game like A Quiet Year by Avery Alder, or The Fall of Magic by who the hell knows who made that game, or playing Microscope, or playing Kingdom or Follow, any of those Ben Robbins games. I don't know that they're games. They're more like collaborative storytelling activities. So SCAs, right? I don't know that I would call it a game. Question from Frostjack. Do you think Ben goes too far with it for your taste? Yes. And I've told that to Ben. There's a lot of books that Ben really likes. Smith likes them too. The Gardens of Yin. There's another one, which are this sort of like psycho trip, random procedural generated. Oh, you never know what's going to be in the next room. It links back and it's all nonsense. I don't like that. That is not something that I find very interesting. The events for me are never as interesting as the whole picture of taking a step back and really seeing what it is that we're building. Deep crawls. Thank you, Mr. Smith. Yeah. So William Brandis, those are called deep crawls, and I'm trying. There's another game besides Gardens of Yin that I'm thinking of. I don't know. Can't remember the other one. But those don't really hold my attention, honestly, at all. I don't know. Maybe. Yeah, maybe. Definitely Gardens of Yin. That's for sure. Stygian Library. That's it. Thank you. That's the one. Stygian Library. So those two books, Gardens of Yin, Stygian Library. To me, I don't know what we're doing there. I don't know what we're doing. Like, I love that other people love them. But I don't, it's not my favorite. I would even say, as goes so far as to say, it doesn't really hold my attention at all. So what's the difference in definition between what an RPG is and what Ironsworn is? It's a great question. I don't know. It's a tough question to answer, to be honest with you. I don't know that we need an answer to that. But it's, I don't know. Sean, you stumped me. I actually, I don't know. I usually have an answer for everything. I actually don't know. So William reminding us to not listen to me. Mr. Smith says, don't listen to Derek. They are great books and deep crawls are a great tool. Just don't overdo it. All right. I use the Stygian Library to generate a huge library in my homebrew world. I just ignored the stuff I didn't like. So you kind of use it as a prep tool, which is fine. Unfortunate Pumpkin says, could we consider, Ironsworn a storytelling game? Maybe, but that's still the implication that there's definitely a game element to it, right? You're not just storytelling. There's definitely dice and random outcomes. And in theory, the choices that you make do have an influence on those dice outcomes. So there is an element of game there. So maybe storytelling game, collaborative storytelling framework. Mr. Smith says, I think it is an RPG. It just uses journaling as its resolution mechanic. That's certainly an interesting way to describe it. So I think there is role playing and there is a game, so it may be an RPG. Yeah, I don't want to poo-poo those games, by the way. I think that, they're fantastic. They're fantastically designed games or activities. I just don't know that I, fully. It's like I've heard before, by the way, the definition when people talk about sport. And, there's Webster's dictionary, but I've heard it said before that in order for an activity to be a sport, your actions have to be able to directly influence your opponent's actions. Okay? Football, soccer, right? Whereas something like bowling, where you could theoretically compete against your player, but nothing, and then people say, well, the way you throw the ball is going to determine the lane, but you understand what I'm saying. Darts may not be a sport as such, because golf may not be it. Because in golf, you're really just competing against yourself and seeing who gets the highest score. All right? So there are some people who say that those aren't sports. Those are just games. Whereas like chess would qualify as a sport, not a game, because you are, directly competing. Running and racing is another example of where people might say that doesn't maybe follow into the world. But I think we can all agree that they are sports, right? We call them sports. They are sports. We say that they're athletes. And I think that kind of really subtextual definition is sort of where we're at with Ironsworn and sort of where we're at with, more of our traditional RPG games. There's something different about that if you really dig into it. But, I think at the end of the day, that's really just being pedantic. Flintfire says it's cornhole. Cornhole, you're playing on the same board, you're alternating. My bag could influence your ability to score points. So arguably, you are interacting with your opponent in a meaningful, real-time way. Ergo sport. So I think that's kind of where we're at with I think that's where we're at with Ironsworn, or Starforged, where it is definitely, we can all just agree that it is, it is a role-playing game. But what kind of role-playing game is it? I don't know. I mean, case in point, if I go pull Microscope off my shelf, I don't even know where it is. Oh, here it is. If I pull Microscope off my shelf, it says it's a fractal role-playing game. It's a fractal role-playing game. What the hell fractal even mean, Ben? Come on, Ben. Not our Ben Robbins, who wrote this. They say that this is a role-playing game. You're not even rolling dice in this game. You're just making up the history of a world in turns. That's it. But they call it a role-playing game. I don't know that I would call it a role-playing game, but they call it a role-playing game. So, Jason's here.
Jason B tipped $10. Sorry, probably won't be on as much anymore. In case you haven't noticed, I'm a big shot streamer now. Gotta go. People looking for hot alchemist tips.
I saw that, Jason, I saw that you were streaming about how to play Pathfinder 2 now that everybody is flocking over to Pathfinder 2. Congrats, by the way, Jason. So many people are going to be joining the Patreon or the Reddit, and I'm sure you're going to sell out. And I heard Archives of Nethys went down, your website went down, so congratulations on all of the the things there. So dice equal RPG. I don't know. I mean, I think having some form. Well, no, I don't know. Because I was going to say, having some form of deterministic outcome or a non-deterministic outcome might be required. But chess doesn't have, right? Chess is completely deterministic. There's no randomness in chess. It's still very much a game. But I don't know. What's the difference between OSE plus Mythic GME and Ironsworn? You mean like Mythic GME being played like solo in terms of like an actual, game? I'll say this. Ironsworn is specifically designed for that, right? The whole premise of the game, it avoids or abstracts all of the elements that would be the most fraught in a solo situation. And that is where the game tech, if you will, the crunch of the game, at least my experience from Starforged, is really focused. And they really go out of their way with things like, for example, dealing with an obstacle slash combat or whatever, of making that an interesting play pattern, because you've got to make progress, but you can, pay the iron price. And then once you think then there's sort of there's like a little bit of a gambling. I don't remember what the move is called, right? But once you've achieved so much progress, you actually have to make that a check to finish the clock, if you will, or finish the complication. And so there's kind of like a risk reward, that you're trying to make. You're making all these progress moves, and then you're like, okay, I want to finish it. I want to end the combat. I want to end the travel. And then based on how much progress you made, it may be easier or harder. And so you're kind of making this sort of a gamble. And I think that's where, again, they've specifically included mechanics to assist you in that resolution. Whereas when you're playing solo, say Old School Essentials, and using the Mythic Gamemaster emulator, it is a module built on top of a game that was never designed to be played solo or GM-less. And so there's going to be, I think, some parts where you're going to go, I'm not really quite sure what we're supposed to do here, or what I'm supposed to do here. It doesn't sync up as nicely as I would have expected it to. And quite frankly, I think it's hard to be unbiased when you're playing solo. Maybe if a few of us can. I don't remember if it was Mr. Smith or not, but somebody was describing their solo play of Ironsworn, and their allies died, their wife died or something like that. They were left for dead. They got a huge wound and were, basically bleeding out in the dust and only barely managed to survive. And now it's like, hurt and damaged with like a lost limb or something like that. It's like, that's so heroic, right? There's few people who would have the kind of conviction to be able to sit there and go, okay, and not be like, I'm playing here alone. I'm just gonna roll again. I'll pick the one above it, right? I'll pick the one right above it because that sounds a lot better. Wink, wink, nudge, nudge. So maybe if you can really hold to it, I suppose you can. Amber Diceless would like to have a word with you. Yes, that's true. I used Amber as an example when I talked about fortune-based resolution, which again is a form of resolution. Gloomhaven RPG will use the modifier dex in place of dice. It seems interesting, although it may not be variable enough. And obviously that is in any Oracle or any solo situation, right? Or any true AI type situation. The limitation is always going to be your ability to be infinitely adaptable to a wide variety of situations. This Gloomhaven RPG is going to either be a really cool piece of tech or a tremendous, horrible disaster. It'll be really interesting to see what they do with this. It's going to sell 18 trillion copies because people are obsessed with Gloomhaven, and it remains to be seen if the game will actually even be remotely playable. Yeah, Brandis makes a great point here. Smith says, yeah, Ironsworn oracles work to push the game forward so you won't get as wonky stuff. It's designed for that, right? To move the game along. And so you're not just stuck in sort of an oracle spiral, right? Or like, it's not even a death spiral, but where you're just like stuck in, like I said, this sort of maelstrom of just random events. And you're like, what is even going on right now? I don't even understand from like taking a step back and thinking about this as like a real life or as sort of a narrative. This just feels all way too convoluted, complicated, and all over the place. Most people that play Ironsworn solo are actually super hard on themselves. Is one of the things they warn the newbies about. Hey, go easy on yourself. Have fun. No, I mean, I haven't played it solo, but if I did play it solo, I would be very hard on myself. In fact, I'd be like, I would always try to find the most horrible the most horrible, awful outcome for my characters. But right, because that maybe that's a great point, Darth, because if you're an average Joe, you're gonna just cheat a bunch, and you're just gonna fudge the numbers, and you're just going to come up with this experience, which is going to be really milquetoast, because it's going to be really milquetoast, right? It's going to not be a compelling argument. You're going to feel like you're just rolling dice just to roll them, and it's not going to be exciting. Or you're going to play it legit, and you're going to be really hard on yourself because you want to be super, super legit, and you're going to end up with kind of an experience that you go, I don't know that was so great, because there was no one advocating for the PCs. But if we go back to where a game master is impartial, but as I like to say, Dungeon World says in their agenda, and I think this applies to almost every RPG, be a fan of the player characters. And I think having the game master in that role to not only adjudicate, but to adjudicate in a way that is being a fan of the characters. And that doesn't necessarily mean keeping them safe, but it definitely means filling their lives with adventure and danger. And we know that is so important to a role-playing game, to fill their lives with adventure and danger. We want to avoid the boring stuff. We want to avoid the desperate or the hopeless. We want it to be dangerous, but we want it to be exciting. We want it to be adventuresome. And I think maybe having the game master there to sort of serve as a sort of biased, impartial judge is maybe a good thing. Maybe it is a really good thing. And maybe that's what oracles really represent, is that, as a game master, if you're truly, espousing sort of Dungeon World principles of being a fan of the player characters, or maybe you're a dungeon master who is a, heartless person and you want to kill the player characters. The reason oracles could be so interesting into your game is because it takes your bias out of the equation. It lets a truly unbiased result enter into your game space. And that could be very compelling for players and for GMs. RPG musings. Gloomhaven RPG, unplayable disaster, but it will sell out. Yeah, I will agree with that. I don't want to say it's going to be an unplayable disaster, but my thought is it's going to be an unplayable disaster. Yeah, it'll be interesting. We'll see. I'm gonna pay. I don't know if I'm gonna buy it. Pay? Yeah, I'll probably buy. Yeah, I'll probably buy it. I'll buy it. This is how excited I get when we're on stream. I just hit my steps for the day. Okay. Let's see. KC says, yeah, that's how every choose your own adventure book ended for me. After dying for the nth time, I would just peek ahead to find the right option. Hard to stick with the outcomes when you're the only one in the room. Sure. Darth, you played the live play demo. Darth, where'd you do that at? That's awesome. I didn't know there was a live play demo for it yet. Brutus, I mean, solo play is becoming more popular in the board game space as well. It's a different kind of fun than group play. Brutus, I completely agree with you. I think part of the reason why Ironsworn swept sort of the surprise people in the gaming space, and the Mythic Gamemaster Emulator 2nd edition is #1 on DriveThru RPG. I think a surprisingly large number of people want to play RPGs. They either can't find a group or they don't want to find a group. And I think solo play is going to become a bigger and bigger part of this hobby. I think people who want to play role-playing games like video games and their ability to just sit there and play with no one else and their own schedule. And RPGs were always something they couldn't get into because there were no tools for them to engage with them in that respect. And I think you're completely correct. I think it's going to become more and more popular as time goes on. Sean says, I like doing solo play, Ironsworn Starforge for me, because I don't have to hope that I find a GM who is exactly what I want. I can just be the GM and then use the oracles. I mean, Sean, you're not wrong. I mean, we all certainly have our unique tastes that we want to sort of see in our players, but I think having other points of view is a good thing. Sometimes it could be a bad thing because other players or even your game master aren't engaged or involved with the game the same way that you are, but they can provide an interesting take. And yes, oracles help fill that gap, but the cool idea from the oracle will never be as cool as the cool idea from my friend who I'm playing the game with. That's for me personally. You're still waiting for Frosthaven? I didn't know you pre-ordered Frosthaven. I didn't pre-order Frosthaven. You don't even like Gloomhaven. Why the hell did you pre-order Frosthaven? Okay, it was at PAX Unplugged. Okay. Oh, a group demoed it. Okay. I did not know that. This has inspired me to dedicate playing Ironsworn tonight with my partner collaboratively. Yeah, I mean, I think that's fun. I mean, solo play, yeah. Collaborative, though, I think can be a lot of fun. I mean, well, Ironsworn and Starforge both have inbuilt oracles in the game books themselves for a lot of variety of reasons. But I do think you can benefit from things like, Mythic GME or Universal NPC Emulator to give you a little bit more crunch and depth into those tables, give you more inspiration. I think that'd be really cool. Kevin says bowling is a sport because you might go for a riskier play based on your opponent's score, for instance. All right, fair enough. You're indirectly being affected by your opponent, right? You still have to beat. You're right. It's like the bear. You don't have to get a certain score. You just have to beat your opponent. So maybe that muddies the water there, Kevin. William, I didn't pre-order. Okay, you're waiting for it to come out to buy it. I heard they fixed the looting. I have a funny, interesting thing we can talk about in the Discord, but I just, we were playing Descent 2nd Edition, a board game, the other day over at Bob's. I taught him and his friends how to play, and I subbed in for one of their players who didn't make it that day. And we were playing, and Descent 2nd Edition was kind of a trial run that Gloomhaven stole a lot of mechanics from. And one of them is this idea that you can loot during the mission, but then once the mission is over, for good or for ill, you can't get any of the other loot. And it makes no sense, right? It's completely gamist. But it creates such a compelling game challenge that is, I think, really interesting. And it shapes the way that you build your character. It's interesting because in a D&D concept, you don't ever have to worry about things like, looting or this or that or whatever, because you just kill everything, right? If we kill everything in the dungeon or we kill everything in the mission, then we'll have infinite time to get all the treasure. We'll have infinite time to research the library or infinite time to study the tapestry or study the fresco. We'll have infinite time. There's no pressure on us if we just kill everything first. And so I think in TTRPGs, you tend to get into a mindset of, well, as long as we can kill everything, or I guess force it to flee, then everything else is secondary, and it can stay secondary because there's no other pressure on us. I used to play a lot of Warhammer Fantasy, not Age of Sigmar, and this is like back when you had the rank and file troops that would move across the room. This is true for Warhammer 40k as well. But you roll your missions for Warhammer 40k, and very rarely is it ever just kill all the enemy team, right? It'll be like there are 5 objective points on the battlefield. And if you control an objective point at the end of your turn, you get 1 victory point. After 6 turns, right, whoever has the most victory points wins the battle. But if that was a D&D thing, you'd be like, okay, well, we'll just kill all the enemy team. Then we'll just go stand on all the victory point team for, 400 turns, because what's a turn anyways? And so now, instead of having, units that are quick and fast and maybe not really good at fighting, but they can go and secure a point early so that you can get some points early on. That way, when the game ends, oh, hey, look, I won. Instead, you would just build the ultimate, Hulk smash army, kill everything. I don't have to worry about being subtle or playing to the objectives because I'm just going to kill everything. So it's interesting how TTRPGs almost become more one-dimensional because they're realistic. All right. Darth recommends Blades in the Dark. It's a good idea to get started on oracles because it was designed to be prepless. Got to agree with that. Some people asked earlier on, do oracles work well with a game like Pathfinder 2? It's tough. Pathfinder 2, 4th edition D&D, even 5th edition D&D, 3rd edition D&D. These are complicated games. And NPCs have, sure, you can just, 4th edition, you can fit the monster stats on a business card. Pathfinder 2 is not the worst, but, there's a lot. I pick a level, I can pick a couple numbers, I have a rough idea of the creature's hit points, attack roll, damage, stats, saves, pretty quickly. Not as quickly as in 4th edition, but pretty quickly. But that doesn't mean it's a good monster. It doesn't mean it's a good opponent, right? Because there's so much more subtlety that goes into a game with the kind of complexity and depth that a game like Pathfinder 2 or 4th edition has, where monsters have abilities and traits that trigger off of one another, and speeds and weaknesses and resistances and immunities and special actions and powers, let alone spells, that make the creature more than just a bundle sack of hit points. In a game like Blades in the Dark, creatures don't have stats. Everything is just a skill check or a clock, It doesn't matter whether it's a foot race, a industrial competition between two factories, or a combat between two armed gangs at the docks. They're all kind of resolved the same way. And so I find it a lot easier to just, hey, yeah, sure, we're gonna make up a whole new gang of pissed off dock workers who are on strike because of the unsafe working conditions, but are secretly using it as a cover to, I don't know, rob the bank. And we'll make up a bunch of that. It doesn't matter. We don't have to make up any stats. But if I was playing some other game and the party wanted to go fight those people, now I'm like, okay, well, now I got a lot of work that I need to put into place in order to make that something that is both usable, but also actually still interesting and not just being like, yeah, I just, they're guys, they have clubs and hit points in an armor class, and that's as much detail as the monster has. That is technically sufficient, but I don't know that creates a very compelling encounter within the combat mini game that exists within most D20 games, right? Let's see. All of my dungeons start sinking into lava as soon as they are cleared. Well, that's one way to resolve that issue, Brutus the Cat. Well, two of you said sinking into lava. Okay, apparently this is the go-to thing. Mr. Smith says, if you memorized the GM monster builder and were good at making up a bunch of interesting powers on the fly, maybe it wouldn't be completely awful with an oracle, but it's still not ideal. That is mostly how I feel. I think that the more complicated a game is, it's like a big ship. It's got a lot of fun bells and like a big cruise ship, I should say. It's got a lot of fun bells and whistles on it, 18 different restaurants, hundreds of, pools and whatever, but that thing does not steer very well, right? And if you want to change course, it can be a little tough. A smaller ship may not have as many cool bells and whistles and fun amenities, but it's a lot more maneuverable. And if you want to suddenly change course and go somewhere different, it's a lot easier to do that. So there's pros and cons to both. I like Blaze in the Dark a lot, and I like prepless play, and I like randomly generating ideas on Oracle tables. But I also fully admit that those games don't have a lot of crunchy, deep, mechanical depth. They can't. They're almost kind of counter-purposed. Sometimes I want a deeply crunchy, mechanically deep encounter with a lot of game rules and a lot of elements and a lot of complexities in all of the, hazards or traps or monsters if it's a combat, or if it's a some sort of skill challenge or some sort of victory point system. There's a lot of cool, interesting game mechanics to interact with the accumulation of victory points versus, a simple clock in Blades in the Dark where you just kind of say, yeah, okay, make a check. Okay, good success. Yeah, mark 2. Okay. Like that's as complex as it gets. There's not really a whole lot of, you're not flanking the clock in Blades in the Dark, right? You can't just take something from the bestiary and reskin it on the fly. Of course you can, but that's how that's what I did for the Poppet adventure. But that's how you end up with the elves actually being ghouls, right? And you're just like, isn't this just a ghoul? Isn't this just a reskin? I'm kind of down on reskins. I personally am kind of down on reskins. I think I get why we do it, because it's quick and it's fast and it's easy and we just do it. But I think you're losing a lot of the subtlety and the flavor that comes with monster design, especially in games like Pathfinder 2nd Edition and 4th Edition D&D, where I think the combat is a more nuanced and complicated and involved affair, and for good reason. They want it to be more fun and interesting, right? see. Yeah, if the old 4E digital tool set would probably be really powerful. Some people might still have that access to that. I mean, officially, no one has access to that, right? It was destroyed. It was killed. And we follow the law here. Let's see here. I find prepless games kind of floaty and stressful to GM. I think Always AFK, I'd have to ask, what system were you doing these in? If you were doing a prepless game in Pathfinder 2, I would find that stressful as well, to be completely fair. Now, if you find that stressful in a variety of games, that just says something to your personality, and that's totally fine as well. Okay, you're saying Monster of the Week. Okay, yeah, that to me is more your style. And, like I said, there are some people who are happy to be up there giving the speech, and there are some people who are happy to be, I'm just going to give a speech, I'm going to wing it. And there's other people who would rather spend the time, the hours and the hours of time, crafting a speech that is, more reflective of what they want to do. Only thing I worry about is that if you prep, it creates inflexibility in your ability to game master, right? Because now you're basically saying, if the party goes left and I thought they were going to go right, well, then, what are we supposed to do? And that puts you in an odd situation, a tough situation as a GM. And there's a temptation because you've done the work. You put in a lot of hours. And there's a very strong natural bias or temptation to want to steer the game, right, back towards, the outcome that you had expected, right? And I think that is ultimately, I think, where the dilemma comes in, or, the problem comes in. Yes, Darth Gorlock is our hype boss, sitting at 1 hit point, but we are playing D20, so he's totally fine. There's nothing wrong with him. He can double slice until the cows come home, right? I don't even prep for my PF2 games I run. I guess my question to you would be, Pumpkin, is how, in your personal opinion, how in-depth and how meaningful are your games? Another way to say it is, how much do your games sort of foreshadow
$10
or have a sort of a feeling of momentum in them? Do you feel like, or does it feel more like a random series of unrelated events? That's all I'm trying to say. Hey, GM Scott, thank you for the tip. Moo. All right. Well, GM Scott is our new, until the cows come home. Okay, got it. Well, GM Scott's our new hype boss, takes out Darth Gorlock. So, Darth Gorlock, you are, unfortunately, that was a crit. So you're dying too. But don't worry. If you get treat wounded, it goes away completely. You'll be fine. Yeah, right. But if that's your idea of prepless play, Pumpkin, we're in trouble here. Sometimes it happens and feels meaningful, but it's usually by accident, lol. Okay, I mean, look, as long as we're being honest here, then that's quite all right with me. Doing a Blaze in the Dark style post-score faction roll, I think, is a great way to do the tiniest bit of prep while still giving your players lots to do. I agree, Sean. I think that's a fantastic way to do it. Or having a concept of a faction turn. Maybe you do it once a session. Maybe you do it at the end of the session. So the players are thinking and the GM is thinking. Maybe you have a Discord or some sort of chat going on, group chat, where everybody can talk about what's happening in the environment and in the world. That can be a great way to set up free play in follow-up sessions where they try to gather information and learn things, because the players know that there's something going on with, the red sashes, or going on with the crows or whatever. But the PCs need to to gain information in order to sort of set up their next score. So I think that could be, I think that's a really fun way to do it in general. So couldn't see the stream while was live only. Couldn't see the stream, was live only. I wish they didn't bury live streams. Ryan, I completely agree with you. In fact, I can tell you, heart to heart here, Ryan, that since YouTube made the change where live streams are now separated and they are in their own category, and everybody who's a subscriber here knows that we, the Knights of Last Call, have really mostly just done live streams the last several months. Doing a pre-recorded video when you go and talk for as long as we go and talk doesn't really make a lot of sense. If you're doing short, 5 or 10 minute videos, that's manageable, easy, it's digestible. People can quickly click on people click on that video and they'll watch it and you'll get some views. But spending 4 or 5 hours recording and then maybe another 5 to 10 hours editing a 2-hour video just doesn't make a lot of sense for us. So we don't publish a lot of, defined videos. We do a lot of live streams though, right? We're doing something like 10 to 11 live streams a month. So we're putting out something like 30 to 40 hours of content every month, but it's all under live stream. And YouTube separates that now. And so people come to our channel and they say, oh, they haven't posted a video in 2 months. Okay. And they close it. And our views have gone way down. They have gone way, way, way down since YouTube has done that. So it does suck. So thank you, Ryan. I'm glad you found us, but it is unfortunate. Darth Gorlock bitching about no one voting for Blaze in the Dark in our Discord. We'll talk about it eventually. Yeah, I mean, Blaze in the Dark does a lot of great things, and it can do them though because of the way that the game is set up, and because of the way it's structured. Boothbait, we spent the whole first hour talking about what oracles are useful for, how to use them, some pitfalls, some promise, all the things that you should probably be looking out for, and some of the ideas behind why you would use them and where you would use them, and just getting familiar with them. But I mean, I'll be honest with you, the best way to use them is just reps, just doing reps, repetitions. Just use them. Get used to it. Get used to thinking creatively. It's a lot like becoming a, an ad hoc, or what do they call them? Improv comedian. It's a skill. It's a definite skill. I think prepping and preparing for a session is a skill. And I think doing extemporaneous, prepless, no prep, kind of oracle-driven play, that is a skill as well. And it's one that you definitely need to sort of work on. So, yeah, for sure. Yeah, Brutus, it's brutal. I don't know what to do. I honestly don't know what to do. Darth is replying to Sean about faction roles. I agree with Darth here, Sean. Faction roles, in my opinion, work best when the players can see every step of the way. Again, whatever works for you and your group. I like for my players to have that sort of third-person omniscient knowledge of what's going on. I want my players to be engaged in the narrative at a sort of a director or producer level. And I think that for me is really, really interesting. Can I re-upload the live stream as a video? Not really, Brutus. I could, but that's just very awkward and sort of weird. I mean, part of the reason, Brutus, I mean, now granted, in my streams, I have the chat here and people can read it. But if I download it, I lose the chat and I lose some of the fun elements that make it interesting. And it's just, we do so many live streams, Brutus. Downloading something like this, which is over 2 hours long from YouTube, takes so many hours. Then I have to then I still have to edit it. And then I would have to re-upload it as a video, which would take even more hours. It would just be and for as often as, if I was only live streaming maybe once or twice a month, but like I said, we sometimes live stream 3 times a week. It would just be too brutal. Clips has always been a suggestion, but I don't know. It's hard. Maybe it's because it's hard to edit yourself. When I watch back if I ever do watch back any of my videos, which I don't do often, I'm always like, what am I going to clip here? One of our more popular videos is a video. It's recorded, called Dungeon World, the 13 Principles of Dungeon World. It's a very popular video. Actually did really well. It's a clip from a live stream. I think that was just about PBTA. It's a 45-minute clip. So even our clips are still just ridiculously long. I don't know how people can figure out this, like, 5-minute clip. I don't know. Maybe I'm just bad at editing myself, or I'm bad at, like, identifying where's an interesting start moment and here's a, finish moment. I'm not really good at that, so I don't know. And here comes the Twitch stuff. Yeah, maybe. Again, the problem with Twitch is right now I have one chat. I'm interacting with that chat. I'm talking to you all. I have my YouTube adventurers who get their emotes and their emojis and their loyalty badges. I've got the chat here in my teleprompter so that I can read the chat while engaging with the camera. I can type to the chat. Yeah, if I had YouTube and I had Twitch, I would have 2 separate chats going at the same time. I don't know. Maybe I personally feel like it would be overwhelming, and I also feel like I would lose some of the connection that I have during these live streams, which I think makes it so much fun. So why not grab the audio, put it on the pod? I thought about that before, Flint. Not many people listen to our podcast, but especially the longer ones anyways, all of our stuff is just too long. That's what it comes down to, Flint. It's just too long. And I don't know what to say. And then because it's a live stream, right? I think when something's recorded, I think people expect it to be, and I don't think that's an unreasonable expectation. I think people expect it to be a little bit tighter, right? A little bit more tightly edited, a little bit more, less pauses or ums and ahs. If you're listening to the podcast and I'm showing something on the screen or I'm getting something off of my shelf, you don't know what's going on. Or even if I record this and you're watching it, it's like when it's live, I think people have they have a healthy amount of consideration and patience that comes with a live broadcast. But when you're watching a recorded video, you expect for people to have those pauses, which I put in, edited out, or at least you want them to be, much more succinct and faster paced and kind of compressed. And there's a more casual conversational tone to these. I'm responding to people from the Patreon. I'm thanking people for their super chats. And that may not be stuff that people want to listen to on a podcast or listen to on a recording, because at that point, you're just listening to a long live stream, but it's not live anymore. It's the VOD, which we get views on our VODs. Don't get me wrong. People do somehow come back and listen to this stuff. God bless. But I don't necessarily know that that's the kind of compelling content that people are really looking for with our recorded stuff. So need a way to crowdsource the clipping. Yeah, that's not a bad idea. We just need an editor. Deadly D8 crush it. Yeah, Deadly D8 did a great job. Brandis Smith talking about when Deadly D8 took our video about I don't even remember what it was about now that I'm thinking about it. But he took our video and said, hey, I want to make an animation to it, and we want to do a collab. And we're like, oh, great, that's awesome. And he did a great job, and he had some amazing artists work on it and all this other fun stuff. But what really surprised us was how he took our third action. Thank you, Casey. It was our third action. How he took our 25-minute video, right? Because he's editing it, he's paying, he's got a team, he's got illustrators, and he's doing a ton of editing work. He's not making a 25-minute video. Boom. He cut that thing down to like 6 minutes. He took our like 25-minute video and he cut it to 6. And you watch it and you go, everything that we wanted to say was in that video. He cut out 75% of it, but yet everything important that needed to be said got said. So I was very much impressed with the editing, not just as a skill of putting together a good video, but I mean editing in the sense of removing unnecessary bits of information or fluff or whatever, what have you. Maybe note down timestamps of what an interesting segment is while you're in the moment. That's very hard to do, Frostjack. I don't have a timer here. The video, because we go live, YouTube counts the timer from when I start the stream, but not, as soon as the clock starts counting down. with the little intro screen, and then that's just really too tough to do, Frostjack. So call it Friday nights live on the pod. Well, Flint, I mean, we do want to start doing live shows with the group. We used to call that the nightlife. And we used to do that pre-recorded. And we would get together in person on the mics and we'd have a conversation, record that. And, that sort of evolved into the podcast. But it just became very difficult to get everybody together. But as we've put in so many hours to rebuilding our studio, one of the things we want to do is bring back the nightlife and do it live and do it in person live and have all of us in the same room on on our mics, sort of chit-chatting, interacting with each other, and having people from the chat or having people even call in remotely into our audio board. My audio board can accept external inputs, so someone could call in, on Zoom or whatever. We could put them in, patch them in, and that'd be a lot of fun. But it's also a lot of work to get the audio visual working. I mean, a lot of the money, almost all of the money that we have made on this channel has essentially gone back into the channel because I don't know how other channels do it. I really don't. I don't understand how they do it. But they managed to. But I spend a lot of money to try to get good equipment and all this stuff. I mean, hell, this shotgun mic right here is like $650 or something, or $550. And I bought it to test it because for the studio, I want to get 5 of these, one for everybody, so that we don't have to have like like if you remember our old nightlife videos, we had the microphones in people's faces. And when they would be playing D&D, you had this big microphone right in your face. And I was like, oh no, I want to get rid of this. And, because this is that microphone. This is the Shure SM7B speaking to you now through my NPR voice. But this is the shotgun mic. And, obviously it's a different sound, but it's also a lot more freeing and I can be kind of all over the place and not lose anything. I'm getting off topic here, but anyways. Thank you. That vid got me to try out Dungeon World. Awesome. Also, 45-minute clips are good for KOLC. You're not wrong, Frostjack. You're not wrong, Frostjack. I mean, it's better than our 3.5 hour. This video right here. This live stream is going on 2.5 hours already. So anything under 90 minutes is pretty much a big win for us. If it's under an hour, that's like a YouTube short. For the YouTube short Knights of Last Call edition. In fact, that's a funny story. I've told this I think on the live stream before, but when I had a conversation with Aaron, and I said, "Hey Smith, we needed, we're still trying to figure out a way to break into the mainstream, and YouTube is telling us to do shorts. And Smith said, "Okay, you know what? I could do some shorts." And I said, "Great." He's like, I drive to work, or when I'm driving into the data center. In my car, I'll just, talk to whatever. So he sends me the first one, and I watch it, and I go, that was great, but it was too long. And he goes, what do you mean it was too long? I go, dude, it was like 2.5 minutes. He was like, yeah. And I go, dude, a short has to be under 60 seconds. And he's like, what the hell is wrong with these people? How could anybody ever possibly create anything in 60 seconds? And I said, I don't know, but that's how entire portions of the YouTube audience are now interacting with the medium. So... he was like, Jesus Christ, like it was horrible. And I was like, yeah, I agree. It's hard. The combat and tactics video, the video which is sitting on my hard drive of this computer, was supposed to, we had like a script almost. I mean, it was bullet pointed, but it was very focused. And it was supposed to be 20 minutes. And I think it's like an hour 20. And it hasn't been edited because editing something that long just takes a lot of time. And quite frankly, between me and you, tonight we came in, we got some great tips, we got some great super chats, we're having some fun interaction with our audience. People get to learn about me, they get to learn about the channel, they get to meet you, and they get to interact with you. You're answering their questions, you're talking with them. And guess what? That is how people become patrons. That's how people decide to take that step and sign up for $5 or $10 a month. And That's huge to our success. You all know this, that, we rely on our tips and our super chats and our Patreon to make money. Because if we didn't have any of that, we would be making $200 a month. Because that's how much money I make from YouTube. It's $200 a month. It's nothing. It's absolutely nothing. But instead we're able to make several $1,000s because of our Patreon, because of this. So anyways, my point is, when we do a recorded video and I just put it into YouTube, we don't get any of that. I don't get the tips. I don't get the super chats. I don't get, me interacting with people. I don't get you all in the chat. Most of you are very dedicated members of a Knights of Last Call community. You have as much skin in this game, it feels like, than I do. And you're part of the reason why people sign up for the Patreon, is because they interact with you here and they go, that was a lot of fun, not just interacting with Derek, but interacting with the people in chat. I want to keep doing that. Or maybe I've done this several times in a row and I'd like that conversation to be something that I can do on the regular basis. We lose all of that. And then the other thing is, most of the time we get more views, like VOD views, on our live streams than we do on our recorded videos. Which means that even the small amount of money that we do make off of ad revenue from YouTube, which is, maybe $5 to $10 a video, we make more of that with the replays of this. So I don't know what to tell you. It's horrible. It's crazy. Unless you're making, recently the Pathfinder 2 folks, Rules Lawyer, Roll for Combat, No Nats, they've been getting 50K, 75K, 100K, 150K views on a video that's 20 minutes long. 150K views on a video is, that's like $500, $600, $700 on a 20-minute video. Okay, now we're talking. Now that's a good exchange rate. 50K is more like $200. Still not bad for a 15-minute video. But that's just been because of the crazy drama. I don't know how long those views are really going to stick around for those folks. I hope they can continue to do well. But for us, it's just not an option. Let's see. Always, have I seen a lot of influx of views with the turmoil recently? No. No. Because people come to my channel and they see, they haven't posted a video in 2 months. And the last video that they posted was some thesis on GNS. The fuck is GNS? Did I accidentally click on the wrong channel? Click, and they turn off. Let's see. Flint. Thank you, Flint. I appreciate that. That's very nice of you. I need a Stream Deck button that snapshots the broadcast time. Maybe that's an option. I don't know. We have this one.
It's a Christmas miracle.
Let's see here. Sean says there are apps that you can get that combine the Twitch and YouTube chat so you only see them in one feed. All right, Sean. Noted. Actually, I'll write that down. I'm just going to make myself a quick note. Cool. I'll check it out. That seems pretty interesting. I will check that out. William Brandis says, Nightlife, August 2022. Derek won't me pay for anything, so rip. Yep, I'm not. This guy already works for me for essentially negative dollars, and then he wants to spend more of his money so that the channel can have better stuff. What is wrong? It's bad enough that there's me, but then there's two of us. Breakfast Talk Radio, Saturday post-game chat. Oh, that is kind of sweet. That's actually a good idea. I love that. Half hungover men wondering why they were up to 3 a.m. playing with toys. I mean, honestly, if I'm being honest here, and we can take a step back here, my real goal with this channel, this is top secret information here, people. So keep it, is I wanted to make enough money, like like money. Not like millions of dollars, but I mean like multiple tens of thousands of dollars, maybe even a month, so that I could pay my friends and my players enough money that it would be understandable and in their best interest that their wives, their partners, their kids, their families, maybe even their job become like a secondary concern, so that we can just play RPGs all the fucking time. That way I could be like, yeah, we're playing 3 times a week. And normally I'd be like, that's way too much. Okay, but you're getting paid, $5,000 a month to do that. Okay, well then I can see where that could be an important part of my my lifestyle. And that way it's like, yes, awesome, cool, finally, I made it profitable for these people to play, So that's like my secret selfish goal. I don't even care about the money for myself. I mostly just want it to be profitable for everybody else around me, and that way I can just like actually have as many games and play in person and do it and have fun and have everybody else, along for the ride. So that would be kind of fun. So that's my selfish goal, people. My other selfish goal is NightCon. And building a community and having something like NightCon, and getting to meet these people and hang out with everybody and play with them and get to meet them first face to face and just hang out and, drink some beers and, and play some games and play some board games and play some role playing games, and just shake someone's hand and say, hey, it's great to meet you. Very honored, very happy that you're here. And, to be able to experience that community in the flesh would just be, really, really amazing. So very looking forward to that. We just this last year at Origins, we had an opportunity to go out. We got some dinner and we grabbed some drinks with people like GM Scott, and we grabbed him with like Andy to the Pain, who was there. We gamed him with Reverse Slalom, who was there. We did some podcasts all together. And those are honestly some of my absolute top tier favorite moments of the entire 2-year journey that we've been on. And so, I can only think of what NightCon would be like. So that would be just awesome. Flint says, I've posted nothing on the OGL. I know my place at the dinner table. I'm not the main dish. I'm the side of mac and cheese. Yeah, Flint. We talked about the orc. Paizo. We do a lot of stuff with Paizo. It was actual news because it was a real published thing from a real company saying stated intention. But for the most part, everything that's been going on with this whole OGL thing is just very, it's just very sad. And the way everyone's interacting with it, both positively and negatively, it leaves a bad taste in my mouth. And, obviously I like diversity of games. I like a variety of games. I talk about them on my channel. I encourage them in my community. I try to play them on my table. And certainly my collection reflects that. So if this pushes more people to a broader, diverse group of games, great. If this leads to everybody trying to make the next D&D clone, maybe not so great, I know that Matt Colville's apparently they just threw themselves in a room and they're like, okay, we got 2 weeks to make a new D&D. Let's go. And they're just brainstorming and jamming, trying to bust out a game in record time so that they can get it published and kickstarted. I don't know. Best of luck, I guess. I don't know. Is that good for us? Is that bad for us? I don't know. It's hard for me to say. Brandis, Mr. Smith says, I've only lost money here. This is true, but I thought that was the point. That is technically true. Always AFK says, that is my lotto dream. I'm not going to lie. Yeah, always AFK. Of course it is. That's all we want to do, right? I just want to be a kid again, but as an adult and have the ability to have all the freedoms an adult has, but get to do all the fun times that I had as a kid and just play games. When I was young, when I was in high school, when I was in college, even when I was right out of college, had my first apartment, we would play Dungeons and Dragons. I'm not even lying to you. 3 to 4 times a week in person. It was amazing. I loved it. It was so cool. I loved it. I loved every part of it. Loved it. NightCon has already settled. It's at Laughing's place. Listen, if there are people in the Southern California region, and if Laughing Outlaw is amenable, it'd be very fun for people to come by. But I don't want to put anything undue pressure on him. That would, of course, be 100% his call. That being said, maybe we could, I don't know, find a place that we could all meet up, a library or something like that, or a restaurant, and have an awesome fun time. That'd be kind of cool. Flint says, funny story. Eric Mona thought my PF2 unboxing vid was put out by Roll for Combat. The minute he found out I wasn't him, he deleted the tweet. Burn. Yeah, well, shit happens. You're not famous enough, Flint. Can we have some of the mobile video call robots for the international people for NightCon? I don't know. If we set it up for us, Jack, I would definitely try to figure out a way that we could either do sort of like a virtual NightCon for all of our European and Oceania, and I know we have a lot of people in Brazil, we have a lot of people in Australia, New Zealand, we have obviously a lot of people in Europe. It would be awesome to do something like kind of like what Gen Con did, where they had sort of virtual Gen Con. It'd be cool to have virtual NightCon as well, but even maybe to do some hybrid style gaming with the people that are actually there, and definitely some sort of big Zoom call to have everybody participate, I think would be a lot of fun. I've progressed too far on the stages for Grief of OGL. I'm still on the anger phase along with the rest of the community. And that, Always AFK, that probably checks out because number one, I've been through this before. I've been through the edition wars several times. I remember when I was, I had Dragon Magazine when second edition, and I was playing second edition, and third edition started getting talked about, and people said that, Wizards of the Coast was buying TSR, and it was going to be the end of Dungeons and Dragons, and then third edition came out, and people said, this is a game, this isn't a role-playing game, this is a board game, look at all this stuff, and the way the art is, and this is a totally different take. And then we did it again in 2007 with fourth edition, and then we did it again with D&D Next, and then we were going to do it again with one D&D, and instead this happened. So now we're just bitching about that. It's way too much. I've been down this road far too many times, and I just don't care. I just don't care. Am I going to Gen Con? I'm going to try to go to Gen Con. We tried to go to Gen Con last year. Could not get a hotel room that wasn't like $700 a night. Didn't want to pay, $2,800 to go to Gen Con. So this year, hopefully, we get something in the lotto that isn't completely horrible. And, because if I'm going to Gen Con, I have like a 3-block radius that I will stay back to. But ideally, I am, I'm in the JW Marriott, I am in the Hyatt, I am in the Omni Severin, I am in the regular Marriott, I am in the one with the train in it. I never can remember the name of that hotel. Either way, I'm next door. It's like my ideal situation. You're still working on KLLC Livestream famous. All right, fair enough. Does feel a bit different from the old edition changes, but so long as you have a group to play with the edition and game you want to play, you're going to change. Yep, exactly, Blaine. I mean, obviously this has a big impact for people in the space, but the truth of the matter is the people that are going to be the most affected are really the content creators and the small companies that are out there bitching and trying to drum everybody up into getting in this frenzy and cancel their D&D Beyond subscriptions. Because they're the people who are doing these Kickstarters. They're the people who are selling this OGL content to their patrons. They're the people making $20,000, $30,000 a month. They're the ones with businesses that are affected by this deal. Yes, you as a consumer potentially lose choice. That's not always a great thing. But I find it hard to say that you're losing choice when I think about how many role-playing games are behind me. And a lot of these books, they've been bought in the last couple of years since 5th edition D&D came out. When people say there's not a lot of choice because of the OGL going away, okay, well, why don't you go buy the 12 books from Legend of the Five Rings that Edge put out? Why don't you go buy the newest set of, books from Ironsworn or Starforge? So there's a million games out there that everybody can play. The people who really suffer are the people who have built huge brands on the back of 5th edition D&D. And the new terms are pretty horrible for them. And they feel like they're getting screwed over. And so they're making it about you being screwed over. But I don't think that the average consumer is really all that screwed over, because you're still going to be able to use what you have. You can play with your table with whatever you want anyways. And to be fair, yes, if they did come in and figured out a way to shut down Foundry and Roll20, obviously that would be a huge impact to people. And that I think is a legitimate concern, although it does always seem very far-fetched to me. But I'm thinking about this. I don't remember what I compared it to, but I just had this envisionment of all these people outraged, and, leak happens, and they said, a group of people who've been playing 5th edition D&D for years and years, maybe online or in person on their tablets or whatever. And they'll all say, yeah, fuck Wizards of the Coast. We're going to cancel all of our D&D Beyond subscriptions. We're going to show them what's up, and everyone's all high-fiving each other, and they're like, yeah, fuck D&D Beyond, right? And then, they, are sitting there, it's like they show up to play their D&D game on Friday, and they're kind of just like, so, what do we do now? Exactly? I guess we didn't really think that through. I guess we don't have a campaign anymore. Well, we could go play Pathfinder 2, or maybe we go do another game. Yeah, I guess. But we could have gone and played Pathfinder 2 before, but we didn't do that because we liked the game that we were playing. But now we have to go do something different. Okay. I guess we're winning. I guess this feels like we're winning. I don't know. It just seems very silly to me, right? It's like cutting off your nose to spite your face, right? It's like, what are we doing here? You're not playing the game now. Okay, well, Wizards got all their money from you anyways. Yeah, you cancel your D&D subscription, whatever. It made a change, and that's okay, good. I mean, money talks, and, all the players canceled their D&D Beyond, but they made their DMs keep it. Or better yet, all the players canceled their D&D Beyond. They're like, yeah, fuck Wizards of the Coast. We're not getting any of our money. Hey, DM, I need you to go out, and you need you to buy the CRB. Also, why don't you pick up a couple extra copies of CRB, because we're not going to buy a copy of the CRB. And then I need you to buy a Monster Manual and maybe a GMG, a couple Lost Omens books. Before you know it, the GM is out like $200. So yeah, it's just crazy. Blaine, I don't like D&D Beyond because I don't like virtual tablets, period. I agree. They are faster and they are quicker. But the same way that maybe I can see a sports game, and I'm not even a sports fan, by the way, but I can see a sports game better from my phone or from my TV because they got the cameras, they got the great shots, they got the lenses. But if I was at the game live and in person, I wouldn't be watching the game on my TV or on my phone, right? I would be paying attention to the game. And yeah, maybe it's not as convenient, or maybe it's not as efficient, but that's not the point. The point is that I am there and I am involved in the experience. I do not personally feel like that is a great way to be involved or engaged with the experience. But I've talked about this at length before. And I'm not a Luddite. I'm live streaming. I've got 5 monitors here and, very expensive telecommunication. I have a YouTube channel, for fuck's sake. But, it's not the way I would prefer to play the game. We play live and we use Foundry because it's a great way for us to broadcast it to people at home so they can see clearly what's going on, because seeing the numbers and seeing the grid is very important for a game like Pathfinder 2. And some of our friends live on the other side of town, or they even live on the other side of the country. So there'd be no way for them to play. So there are, certain fights that we're willing to lose on. But I'd rather everybody be around a table, with a piece of paper, a character sheet, pencil, and have us doing it that way. So yeah, cool. That went longer than I thought. So yeah, we talked a little bit there offline about some other stuff. See, could I clip that and make that a video? But what would that video even be? It would just be a bunch of just meaningless ranting nonsense. You know the case. Like, subscribe, leave a comment. Let me know. Do you use oracles? Are you thinking about using oracle? Does that style of gameplay even sound remotely interesting to you, or does it terrify you? What are your, ideas of how you might use this in your game? And of course, if you're interested in keeping this conversation going, check us out, patreon.com/Knights of Last Call. There's a link in the description below. We also have a link on our main page and our channel header. Our Patreon has extended options, extra videos, extra live streams, but it also gives you access to our Discord, the Knights of Last Call Discord, which is limited to patrons only. But that is where the community that I've been talking about this last 45 minutes is really centered around. And we have some incredible people there who, they're just brilliant gamers. They're going to challenge your perceptions. They're going to give you new ideas. They're going to frustrate you sometimes. They might even borderline irritate you sometimes. But I promise you, it is a growth environment. And there isn't anyone that I know that I'm had some nice conversations with that it hasn't said, I am a better gamer, game master, player. I am a better hobbyist at this genre of hobbies that we have here because I've been a member of the Knights of Last Call. So huge deal. And I love it. And like I said, get in now because maybe NightCon is going to happen. And Northern Reaches Season 2 will be coming out, in the next month or so. So, if you really wanted a chance, if you missed Season 1, now's your time to get in on Season 2. We have a lot of videos in our repertoire describing Northern Reaches, so feel free to go check one of those out. But most people don't make it to the end of the video anyway, so I'm really just talking to my own people. Yeah. All right. Well, it's Tuesday. We'll be back Thursday.
And let's get ready to
We'll be back Thursday for archetypes. That's right. We are going to be diving back in. We are through the halfway point of archetypes, at least in the alphabet. We're going to be diving into that second half of archetypes as we continue to power our way through some of the most compelling Pathfinder 2 content that has ever existed on the internet. It is going to be a beautiful, beautiful thing. Yes, Darth Gorlock, we are doing archetypes, and I'll tell you why we're doing archetypes, because Knights of Last Call don't quit, okay? We do not surrender. We do not give up. There were 135 level 1 arcane spells alone, and over half of them were D's and F's. If that didn't stop us, this is definitely not going to stop us, okay? We are going to get through it. I don't know exactly where we are, KC, because I haven't counted, but we are through the L's. So we're actually into the M's. So at least we're through the halfway point of the alphabet. We might actually be more than halfway through if there was an imbalance in the letters. But we'll see what we're going for. The supercut tier list should be a good video. Yeah, I see it. I don't even know how we can make that into one. Hey, it's our buddy Rich. Need to clip out the never give up, never surrender. Oh, you know what? That's a good one. I love that movie. Galaxy Quest is one of my favorite movies of all time. But that is a great sound clip to have on the board. Yeah, by the way, if anybody has really good ideas about good sound clips that we should put on our board, let me know in the Discord and the KOLC content channel, because I've still got this board, which is all Christmas stuff, and I've been meaning to replace this one with new sound clips. So I like Never Give Up, Never Surrender by Grepthar's Hammer. Anyways, thank you, Rich. Yeah. All right. Well, let's see how we did here. Hey, wait, look at that. We maintained 40 people. Probably only 15 of them are bots. So to mess with Bob alone, we need to put in some Monty Python and the Holy Grail quotes in there alone for sure. So yeah, I think that's gonna do it. So on behalf of the Knights of the Last Call, I just want to say thank you for hanging out with us. We'll be back Thursday to get some more Pathfinder in-depth action. I think we're gonna try to do a couple videos that are going to be aimed at maybe some of the new people who are coming over from 5th edition. Maybe some ideas for, hey, here are some other games that you could play that are like D&D but aren't D&D. Or, hey, if you've decided to go into Pathfinder 2, I know there's a lot of people out there telling you how great the game is, but here is some real advice about how you should play this game and try to make your characters fun but effective. And, I think that, despite what the game tells you, you should really start with an 18. You should definitely try to get your AC plus, your armor plus dex as close to 5 or 6 as possible allowed for your class. That kind of stuff. So we're going to try to maybe get some of those videos out here over the next couple, maybe the next week or two. We've got a combat and tactics video that I am going to try to edit at the same time. So I'm going to be editing. I might as well just get it over with and try to do that. We'll see. It'll be a fun experiment to see if I can actually get a short video made. So look out for more live streams. We're going to have some first looks coming up. We're going to be doing Against the Dark Master. We're going to be doing Sentinel Comics. I don't know. Maybe we'll even do maybe not a first look because I'm probably going to read these, but maybe we'll do a review of Spire and Heart. Maybe. I'm definitely this year want to talk about more games than Pathfinder 2. Pathfinder 2 might end up being something like 33% of our content, but I'd like for, at least 50% of our content to be not Pathfinder 2 content. And that could be generic RPG content like tonight's. But, that is some of the stuff I'd love to cover and I'd love to talk about. Yeah, Microscope would be interesting. Call of Cthulhu, Boothby, I might have to tap out for that one and have just you and Ben come on. Because honestly, Call of Cthulhu, not my favorite game, not my favorite genre. I don't know that I'm the right person to talk about it. So maybe I just come on there and host and just say, all right, I'll let Ben and Boothby talk about Call of Cthulhu because it's not really my game. So, Shadow of the Demon Lord's another great one that I think it's better than 5th edition. So, 33% PF2E is a great ratio in my opinion. Yeah, I feel like that's kind of where I want to end up, Frostjack. And again, that doesn't mean that the other 66% is going to be, root. It just means it's going to be, some of it might be generic and it might apply to your Pathfinder 2 game, like Night School and talking about designing interesting encounters or interesting locations or structuring NPCs to have good, interesting motives. You can use that in any RPG, but it won't be specifically Pathfinder 2. So. All right, everybody. Thank you so much for hanging out with me tonight. And I said Sentinel. Didn't I say Sentinel? I said Sentinel Comics, or I think I said Sentinel Superheroes or something. I said it. Thank you, Dave. So I will talk to you all Thursday, and I'll see you on the Discord. But either way, I'll see you next time on Knights of Last Call. Peace.